Today these kids are queuing up to donate blood, and not one of them is doing it out of kindness. Nobody in this country expects a schoolyard full of teenagers to queue up for anything, least of all this. The nurse working her first drive here keeps being told the turnout at this school is enormous, because nobody in that queue came to give blood. At the end of the line, a black-haired student sits on a crate buying donation certificates at 5,001 each. 2 certificates for 10,000. Thank you. Come again. It runs like a shop counter, so the boy on the crate is paying 10,001 for a 5,001 gift card. It only looks like a loss if you think the gift card is the product. The paper stapled to that card is the actual product. Outside this school, it has a market. A donation certificate quietly moves for around 12,001, and the buyers message him addresses within minutes. So why is nobody else doing it? Because selling them is a crime. He is 17, so the worst the law can do is write his name down and send him home. That is 60,001 today, down from last month. No officer alive will investigate this. A red sneaker answers that thought, straight into his face. His price board goes over the wall while the kick is still landing, and the day's takings scatter across the concrete. Committing a crime makes you a target for other people's crimes. He learned that early. Having no one he can report this to, he curls around the bag and lets it happen. So 4 older boys stand over him and ask, almost pleasantly, whether business was good today. Knowing that nobody is coming for him, he decides how the next 10 minutes are going to go. They spend a minute mocking the government's new rehabilitation law, another slogan from adults who never do anything. Then he spits on him and says the part he came to say, which is that money earned means tribute owed. Without Chang-Soo, he tells him, Min-soo is nothing, and every boy standing over him already knows it, and Chang-Soo is getting out today. Joe Chang-Soo runs the juvenile cartel in this district, and nobody he has hurt will say so out loud. Because nothing has ever been done to him, there is nothing to stop him coming back. Neither of us wants Chang-Soo annoyed, the one in the suit says, because peace is cheaper. Seeing where this is heading, Min-soo reaches into the bag for the money, which is the correct decision, but a blonde boy steps in front of the money and does not take it. Asked twice why nobody is picking it up, Min-soo loses his patience. He tells them where to put it. That sentence is the most expensive thing he has said all year. The blonde boy kicks him down, screaming that Min-soo must think he is some kind of joke. He swears he will kill him tonight, and his own friends warn him where talk like that ends. Watching a shovel come up over his head, Min-soo still assumes he can talk his way out of this. Then he swings a shovel down at a boy already on the ground. Nothing lands. A boy in a school suit is crouched under the school's no violence banner, taking off his glasses. Hearing his own name, Min-soo looks up to find the student council president crouched over him. Tae-wong swings the shovel at him instead, screaming that he will happily go to rehab today. The president catches it midair and asks him, quite calmly, whether he means killing an actual person. He puts Tae-wong into the ground and asks whether he has ever actually killed anyone. He has not. 2 of them run in demanding to know who he thinks he is to interfere. The first punch never arrives. Getting knocked backwards, the second one explains that he was going easy because of the badge. He asks who exactly was going easy on whom, and kicks him off his feet. The president keeps walking toward him anyway. That ends the fight. Left in the dirt, winded and scratched, Min-soo discovers that being rescued is worse than losing. So he picks up his bag and walks off under the same no violence sign the school painted on its wall. A hand closes on his shirt, and Min-soo asks Kang Yu-song exactly what he wants from him. Min-soo tells him they are not brothers anymore, because standing next to garbage gets you dirty. It is not garbage, it is his brother. He walks off and tells him, without turning round, to get rid of that watch. A rich family adopted him, so a cheap watch on that wrist is the thing that embarrasses Min-soo most. Walking home, he cannot stop calculating what today might have cost his brother. Kang Yu-song is student council president with a medical school place already signed, and Min-soo is the school's biggest problem. They also share blood, because Yu-song was born Lee Hyun-soo. He is still at the Penguin Orphanage, in the same building, on the same road. So he decides his brother should not be anywhere near him, and he decides it as a kindness. His road runs through a chained-up clothing donation bin at the end of an alley. Behind those padlocks is the only reason he is still standing. There is cash, a phone, and a stack of certificates, 340,001 in total. He needs $1 million. That leaves him 660,000 short. A part-time job is not an option. Nobody hires an underage orphan with his record. So he keeps committing a crime he knows is a crime, because nothing else pays fast. Then a voice behind him in the dark says that Min-soo is doing very well for himself. If you are caught making money from crime, there is one detail nobody mentions. The government takes every one of it back. Tae-wong finds this hilarious. What do you want? He asks, while the laughing goes on into his ear. He is here to make sure Min-soo wets himself at the sight of him instead of Chang-soo. The next morning, in a classroom across the district, one boy keeps writing through the noise. Chang-soo is back from the rehabilitation center, the teacher announces, and he has clearly done a lot of reflecting. 4 weeks, the class decides, proves the whole program is exactly the joke they assumed. Then something rolls in instead of walking. The cartel leader the police in this district avoided is laughing with drool running off his chin. He is in a wheelchair. Nobody was warned about the wheelchair. He wets himself in front of the whole class while a girl screams behind him. Because the Juvenile Act was abolished, and offenders now go to military-run facilities instead of a warning. Training runs until somebody decides you are rehabilitated. Chang-soo is that decision. That night, police tape goes up outside a building, and the crowd gets pushed back off the street. A driver mentions an accident up ahead and worries aloud about being late for a lesson. In the backseat, Yu-song recognizes the street, because it is the orphanage he grew up in. Realizing where he is, Yu-song stops listening to a single word the driver is saying. He has the door open before the car stops. The first thing he finds on the ground is a cheap watch he told his brother he would never replace. Under the tape there is a covered body, and the neighbors are already blaming an orphanage boy. Getting through the front of the crowd, his face works out which brother they meant. It is Lee Min-soo, kneeling in handcuffs with blood on his face, arrested under Article 243. From this moment, the rehabilitation center owns his identity, and the boy in the wheelchair is what that means. The whole thing arrives at a courthouse 6 weeks later, which is where his luck formally runs out. Inside, room 303 runs summary juvenile court, the fast track built for boys like him. The judge calls him unrehabilitable, and he says it as a verdict rather than an insult. No sign of remorse, he says, and reminds Min-soo what he is actually sitting there for. I didn't kill anyone, Min-soo answers, with his head down. He has said it in every room he has been put in since that night, and asks why none of them listen. Then explain the fingerprints and the blood on this brick, the judge says, and holds it up. He has seen hundreds of boys blame their circumstances, their families, their situation. You kill someone for bullying you? For taking your money? So here is the lesson the court intends him to learn today. If somebody bothers you, ask an adult, because not trusting adults is why he is here. Which is how, under Article 28 of the Rehabilitation and Reform Act, he is sentenced to detention in the Juvenile Rehabilitation Center, and the gallery cheers. The bus climbs into the mountains for hours, and the boys on it treat the whole thing as a day trip. The archway over the gate says rehabilitated youth are the future of the Republic. Then the center itself appears, enormous, surrounded on all sides by mountains and nothing else. Outside the fence, a shovel goes into the ground. Girls in gray are digging under a guard who keeps telling them to dig deeper. The bus loses its mind at the sight of them, because none of these boys expected girls out here. That is the girls' center, somebody explains, and the boys' block is on the other side of the hill. He has learned that, even when he tells the truth, nobody in a room believes him. The bus rolls in through the gate. Then the gate closes behind it, and the noise on that bus stops all at once. They line up outside asking about internet cafes and cigarettes, because nobody has told them anything yet. One of them demands a smoke and offers the guard a punch as payment. Then Min-soo hears a sound he cannot place coming from inside the fence. Men with letters painted on their chests are running at them, squealing. Pig, squeal, squeal, screamed at the top of their lungs by boys his own age. He watches them come at the fence, and cannot make a single part of it make sense. Then he laughs, because grown boys running at a fence making pig noises is genuinely funny. Freeze, he screams, and the temperature of the entire yard changes. The new arrivals ask why anyone is shouting. Platoon, somebody answers. Rows of shirtless boys stand sweating under the letters B, C, and D. With respect to the warden, salute. The guards laugh at their own joke and put the platoon at ease. A man in a dark jacket bellows the order back at them, and the newcomers are still laughing. The man with the goatee smiles at that question. Then he tells them to bend over. Then every boy already inside that fence folds forward with their hands behind their backs. Is this even legal? One of the new ones asks, and nobody standing there answers him. Another batch of pests today, the man with the goatee says, pointing at them. He gives them 10 minutes to turn those pests into livestock. A blonde kid objects to the word pest, loudly, and gets about 4 words out. A fist ends the objection. Debris goes past a wide-eyed Min-soo, and this is the moment he stops laughing. The man with the goatee is already coming through with a wooden board. The old inmates come at them like something that has been waiting a long time for this. He is somewhere in the middle of it, shouting at nobody in particular. 10 minutes later, most of that bus is on the ground, and that was only the introduction. The officer announces they have been promoted from pigs to slaves, which apparently is progress. Lying where he fell, he works out what kind of place he has actually been sent to. Playing dead is the smartest thing available, so he plays dead and reads the room from the floor. A boy runs past screaming for help, which is the fastest way to become a target. An officer waves him over, smiling, and tells him not to come any closer. The baton lands the second the boy reaches him. He hates being annoyed, he explains, and he hates it most when people do not listen. Watching 3 of them work on that boy, what Min-soo notices is the technique. The force is controlled, the movements are exaggerated, and the strikes stay away from vital points. None of these men intend to kill anybody, because none of them want to be murderers either. Then a voice above him says he is quick-witted. A boot pins his head to the ground. No need to apologize. From now on, he is a rat, and rats squeak, which is the only sound he is allowed to make. The officers report that every new trainee has finished undressing. All right then, says the man with the wide grin. The assessment begins. Elsewhere in the city, a hand presses an intercom and waits for an answer that does not come. 2 in the afternoon, he notes, is the perfect hour for nobody to be home. A pair of scissors goes into the lock, and the door opens without any trouble at all. Excuse me, he says to an empty flat, and lets himself in, because he and his brother did this for years, and he never forgot how. Min-soo kept watch in the hallway while Yoo-sung took anything worth taking out of the rooms. It ran until the police caught them both and delivered them to the orphanage. He is not here to steal anything. He is here for an answer, because his brother has been sent to the same place this man came back from. Tied to the bed frame is Jo Chang-soo, the boy the whole district was afraid of, who announces, sobbing, that he has soiled himself again. Yoo-sung asks the room what kind of center turns a person into this. They said he fell from a height, but there is nothing broken anywhere on him. Now he sniffs and repeats the same sentence about his trousers, and he means it. Yoo-sung presses a hand onto his head and tries to make the question land. Knowing it was 4 weeks for Chang-soo, Yoo-sung cannot make himself say how long his brother has. The clock on that wall is running, and he has nothing to take away from here. Zap zap, Chang-soo giggles. Shocking, shocking. It hurts, and none of it is an answer. Getting up to leave, he catches something and stops asking questions. There is something red and raw sitting under the collar of Chang-Su's shirt. A branding iron shaped like the letter B, pressed into a boy's chest. That mark is a grade, and every boy who walks through that gate gets one. Back inside, an officer reads out names, charges, and the letter each of them is worth. Hearing his own charge read out, one boy in the row realizes the man is talking about him. Congratulations, Rat, it is Lee Min-soo. The only A grade in the entire intake is the smallest boy kneeling in it. 18 years old, charge murder, grade A, and the man promises him a particularly delightful time. While Min-soo is being graded, his brother is standing outside a girls' high school on the other side of the city. One of them stops dead and tells her friend to put the food down and look over there, because there is a boy on a bicycle reading Rimbaud, which is not a thing that happens here. He looks up and says hello like they already know each other. They ask whether he is a trainee somewhere and offer him their social media. Behind the glasses, Kang Yu-song is not remotely here for this. He tells them he does not use Instagram, and they decide that makes him better. Then he asks about somebody called Ga Semin, and both faces change at once. That crazy girl, they say, pointing. And she only got out of the rehabilitation center recently. Then, the two of them are standing face to face in the middle of the road. She asks him what he thinks he is doing blocking her way. He tells her he wants to know about the rehabilitation center, and he says it politely. Get lost is the entire reply, and she does not slow down to deliver it. My little brother is in there, he says to her back. She keeps walking, because everybody who stops her has a brother or a son in there. Too direct, he decides, and starts planning a different approach for next time. Then somebody shouts at him from further down the road. A motorcycle helmet comes through the air toward his head. He catches it. Get in, she says, already sitting on the bike. Then the wheel spins and the school disappears behind them. He asks what changed her mind, and the answer is that her own brother is still locked in there. So he asks what kind of place the juvenile rehabilitation center actually is. Then she gives him one word. 3 hours into that place, and a man is still screaming at boys who cannot stand up. Squat jumps, and the squealing has not stopped since they arrived. On 1 they say pig, on 2 they say squeal, and getting it wrong restarts everything. 2. And the squeaking answers, because Min-soo is a rat, and rats are not allowed the pig sound. 3 hours in, and not one of them has been told when this ends. A guard watches the whole yard from a platform built for exactly this. Then one of them drops. A dropout means everybody starts again from the beginning, which is how they turn the boys against each other. His stomach hurts, he says, and he begs for the restroom while he is being kicked. Another guard stops the kicking and asks what exactly is going on here. You held it as long as you could, he says gently. Get up. Then he asks the whole yard whether anybody else needs the restroom. Hands go up everywhere, and the boys still squatting resent it instantly. Who said they could speak like humans? In line. Go now, he warns them, or hold it until training ends tonight. Standing in that line, Min-soo notices the arithmetic has stopped making sense, which is the moment he becomes certain that something here is wrong. Any more livestock want to join? A rare opportunity, they call it. Kindness, with no price attached, is like an unnamed fruit growing in a forest. The sweeter it looks, the harder you should think before you reach for it. So, a hand goes up. He tells the instructor that he does not need to go anymore. A guard has him by the throat before he finishes the sentence. Get back in line, rat. I am watching you. But livestock do not use toilets. Only humans do. Every boy who needs it is now standing in one place, which is the point of the exercise. 30 minutes of rest, he tells them, and the rest of the yard hates them for it. What exactly are you smiling about? The rest was never for you. It lands on all of them at the same time. From now on, he says, you will be a human centipede. A centipede is an arthropod of the class Chilopoda, and the definition is delivered seriously. Face into the person in front, legs on their shoulders, arms up, and nobody falls. He calls them worse than livestock, creatures who cannot control their own bodies. Poop already, he screams at them. We built you a restroom. Push further, insects. It was only 3 hours. Then a hose comes out. The guards spray them down where they lie, so the smell does not carry across the yard. Watching them lie there, you would not guess these were the same boys who laughed at the gate. Now they are livestock, and the only thing on their minds is avoiding the next punishment. One of them asks whether the day is really over, because he cannot believe it. Clean up and feed the livestock their rations, the order goes. Rations happen in a building signposted as the rehabilitation cafeteria. Rice, soup, and something green, in portions built for somebody smaller than them. Looking at a tray with nothing on it he recognizes, Min-soo wonders whether this counts as food. Why are 200 boys eating on the floor with no utensils at all? Because first they sing the Song of Gratitude, which nobody has explained to him. Begin, the guard shouts, and the room starts on cue. We are not human, we are dogs and pigs, and thank you for cursing us, and thank you for beating us. Min-soo does not sing a word of it. Livestock or not, he decides, the only thing he has to do here is last. He will endure this and get out, and nothing else about today matters. Back on the outside, a motorcycle is parked on a road above all of it. This is it, Ga Semin says. Standing up here every day is the only thing she can do about her brother. He is still awaiting trial, and everybody knows exactly where he will end up. Yoo-seong asks whether it really is hell down there, and she says hell would be better. She has nightmares about that place every night and cannot sleep without pills. It was his mother's dying wish that he protect him, and he has already failed at it once, so he came to her before it becomes too late to do anything at all. Having seen everybody else who came out of that center, he knows she is the only one who looks normal. Do you want to know how she survived it? So, there is a way, he says, and he asks how she got out in one piece. She pretended to be an idiot. She is not joking. He tells her to be serious, because she is the only lead he has. Then she lifts the hair off the back of her head. Her scalp is covered in burn scars, and the conversation stops there. That place collects the worst boys in the country and puts them in one building. One argument got out of hand, and she watched somebody's head go into a pot of hot oil. He apologizes, and she tells him not to look at her like that. Playing an idiot is what got her released early, and she says it like a joke. Then she kicks him and warns him never to pity her again. He asks about the mark she mentioned earlier, the letter on the chest, so she explains the induction: a shower, a meal, and a set of clothes. Then a collar with a tracker in it, so that nobody gets far if they run. Stay in line, pig. A guard shouts at somebody being slow about it. Then rooms, and the rooms are assigned strictly by how bad the crime was. E is assault, D is drugs, C is theft and fraud, and B was hers. Then a door opens, which means his brother is in room A, and she says it without needing to check, because room A is reserved for murder and anything the courts count as equivalent. Holding a small basket of folded clothes, Minsu walks into room A, and 4 boys who all killed somebody are already watching him do it. He walks in as B2FA04, holding a basket of folded clothes and nothing else in the world. There are 4 boys already sitting in there, and not one moves when the door opens. 2 of them look at each other rather than at him, which tells him this is rehearsed. A third rubs his forehead like the whole thing is an inconvenience. The one with the long hair does not blink at all. Nobody speaks, and Minsu works out that this is a standoff he cannot afford to lose. Then somebody asks whether he was raised without learning how to introduce himself. Where are you from, and what exactly brought you into this room? Penguin Orphanage, Seonggrak High, he answers. Because a background check is easier than a fight. An orphan and now a juvie kid, they laugh, and one of them calls it the elite track. One of them knows a boy from Seonggrak, and gets told to shut up so fast he sweats. Then the long-haired one asks what he actually did. Being put in this room means he did something the courts took seriously. Reading how fast the others went quiet, Minsu decides the long-haired one runs this room, so he tells them murder. Every face except the long-haired one changes, and somebody asks whether he is lying. Watching 4 murderers react to the word murder, he knows he has misjudged something. If they group boys by offense, he thinks, then either he is the only one, or murder outranks everything. Then somebody laughs that their pet is going to stay the newbie after all. So, the one he took for the boss is not the boss, and Minsu has read the room backwards, because the long-haired boy is sitting on somebody, using his back as a bench. The lowest one in this room is under him, and rank here has nothing to do with the charge. He kicks him for using human words, then asks him cheerfully whether he is enjoying himself. Want to try fighting a murderer, they ask Minsu, and it is not really an offer. So he decides that if this room intends to walk over him, he would rather be treated as the murderer they think he is. 7 in the evening is reflection time, and every boy owes 10 written essays a day. Minsu has no idea what to write, since the one thing he is here for he did not do. His crumpled paper comes back at him, because 2 of them are playing baseball with it. He asks whether the rest of them are supposed to be writing these too, because the white-haired boy writes all 40 of them, sitting on the floor in a pile of paper. Then the white-haired boy asks, in human words, whether he can use the toilet. There are no human rights in juvie. There are only guards who decided long ago that everybody in here is livestock. And in the places where no guard is watching, squatting like a person gets you kicked off the floor, because a dog does not squat. And nobody protects anybody in here, so the weakest boy simply becomes the food. Go on then, they tell him. Do it like a dog, and if you cannot, you become the pet of whoever can, and that is the whole system in one sentence. 8 in the evening is shower time, 3 minutes each, water and soap, and nothing else is permitted in that room. 50 boys share it, which somebody points out loudly, and nobody does anything about. 9 o'clock is bed check, and the count starts at the end of the row. Then the white-haired boy barks his number instead of saying it. Somebody behind Minsu cannot keep the laugh in, and that decides the next 30 seconds. A guard stops in front of him. The first hit lands without a single word of warning, because either way, he was getting hit, and a short beating is cheaper than a long one. 10 o'clock, lights out, and that is the whole day. Lying awake in the dark, he can hear somebody sobbing and cannot place where. It is coming from the bunk directly beside his own. Who is crying like a human? One of the seniors snaps into the dark. That is how the first night in the rehabilitation center passes. 5:30 is cleaning and roll call, because mornings in here start before daylight. 6 o'clock, and a cart comes round with breakfast. It comes through a slot under the door in portions built for somebody half their size. Minsu asks why they are not eating in the cafeteria like the day before. Then he asks where the white-haired boy is, and why he is not eating anything. He is down there, one of them says, and every head at that table tips downward. Under the table, holding it up on his back, is the boy who is not allowed to be a person. He should at least get fed while he is working, Minsu says. They care about him like a friend, they explain. And where else would he find friends like that? So they scrape their leftovers into one bowl and stir it together carefully. Dog food, they announce, served on the floor by good friends. And Minsu has nothing at all to say to what he is watching. And the look on that boy's face says he is going to do it, because refusing costs more. Then he lowers his head toward the floor. So Minsu kicks the table over and tells him not to eat it. Having asked nobody for an opinion, the room goes quiet, and then annoyed. Are you actually just a brat? The long-haired boy asks him. The boy on the floor has a name, and the name is Moon Hyunjun. This place has a hierarchy, and it has rules, and boys who arrive late follow them. If he dislikes it, he is welcome to fight his way to the top of the room. But to do that, he has to beat Moon Hyunjun first, because Hyunjun outranks him. And if he loses, he becomes the new pet. And everything he just did was for nothing. The whole hierarchy game strikes Minsu as unbelievably childish. Then the first punch arrives, and it comes from the pet. Fight back, murderer, they call, unless he wants the job instead. Knowing exactly what losing costs, Hyunjun understands today is the only chance he gets. He is apologizing while he swings, and that is what Minsu cannot answer. Outside, at the orphanage, somebody is packing a bag. The director asks whether Yusong has everything he needs for tomorrow. He does, and he is holding a penguin the two brothers treated as treasure. They were the worst children this orphanage ever had, she tells him, especially him. He corrects her. Director Mom has the wrong brother, he says. Back in the cell, the apologies keep coming, and so do the punches. He just does not want to be the pet anymore, and he says so while he hits him. They called him a murderer. One of them laughs. And look at him now. This is why your parents abandoned you, he says, calling him trash and the new pet. They were never afraid of me, Yuzong says. They were afraid of Minsu. Two of them look up, and the laughing in that room stops all at once. Even the long-haired boy has gone completely still, because Minsu has somebody by the collar, and one punch has already ended him. From now on, he tells the room, every one of them is going to be the pet. He told the room every one of them would become the pet, and the room's answer is a fist in his face. So he swings back and repeats the promise while he does it, because taking it back now costs more. There is blood coming out of his nose already, and he asks them whether he did not warn them about this. He coughs through it while one of them complains that the whole thing has become a mess to clean. There are three of them standing over him, asking what exactly one boy thinks he can do here. This is room A, they remind him, so he can stop pretending that being new makes him dangerous. They were going easy on him, they explain, only because he is an abandoned orphan with nobody outside. Then a toilet brush goes into his mouth. Going easy is officially finished. He tells them to shut up. From that word on, it stops being about hierarchy. Because there are exactly two words that work on Lee Minsu, and one of them is his mother. Two of them pile on screaming to put the brush back in, while he promises to kill all of them. The scarred one repeats it back at him, already winding his arm the whole way back. Then a hand closes around, a broken piece of the handle. He asks whether any of them has ever actually killed somebody, holding it where they can see it. In a place a long way from that room, a man with a mustache promises to abolish the juvenile law. He says, words come first and hitting comes second, and one of his men asks who gets hit. A golf club answers the question, because this is a private fairway and not a political rally. Some nobody turned up and took his position. The congressman complains mid-swing. If only he had put Han Mansu down this cleanly, and every aide behind him calls it a beautiful shot. Then he asks why the young man kneeling behind him has not said anything at all yet. The young man kneeling there is Kang Yuseong, and nobody has told him to stand up yet. He wants to enlist early, and he frames it as useful for his father's political career. Pretending to care about his father, canceling a medical school place, disappearing every night. Speak properly, the congressman tells the son kneeling in the grass beside his golf bag. Isn't this actually about that brother of yours? He asks, lining up the next shot without looking down. Then he swings anyway. The answer was never going to change anything. Enlisting guarantees nothing, since where a soldier gets posted is not a soldier's decision, which is precisely why he is asking, because nobody else alive is in a position to make it happen. Why should I clean up your brother's mess? His father asks him, and he means it as a real question. So the answer is no. Yusong does not need it repeated. Then the man in the visor calls the whole thing give and take, and the conversation changes shape. Can you make your father the president? He asks, and Yusong has absolutely nothing prepared for that. Come on, the man says, walking away from him. Let's go and make your father the president. Back in room A, Minsu is holding a broken handle and promising to put it into somebody's face. Then something behind him stops the threat halfway through the sentence he was making. One of them has him from behind, yelling at the others to hurry up and finish it properly. So the next one swings at his face while he cannot get either arm free to cover it. Then they start arguing over whether he is dead, because killing him is one step past what they wanted. It's a fake, he shouts, and that half second of hesitation is the whole opening. He gets exactly one breath in, and the advantage this room had is already gone. A headbutt takes the chin of the boy holding him, and a heel finds the other one on the way down. The one holding him is heavy, so the whole pile collapses onto the floor together. Is your trigger word mother? The long-haired boy asks him from somewhere above the pile. Or is it the being abandoned part that actually does it to him? Does the mother who abandoned him know that her son grew up into a murderer? He asks. So Minsu has him by the collar with the broken handle held against his face. He tells him to apologize for that sentence, unless he wants to lose his eyes over it. Apologize for what? Comes the answer. For the abandoning, or for the murder? Enough, Gasajun says, and lets go of the wrist he has been holding the whole time. Then he says the one sentence Minsu has been repeating since the night they arrested him. It wasn't me. He started it. He says it to nobody in the room, then turns round and puts his hands behind his head. Because Sejun heard the batons in the corridor a good 3 seconds before Minsu did, the first baton lands across his face. The argument is over. Everyone against the wall, seize the weapon, and subdue that one before he gets up. Causing trouble in the same week he arrived, one of them says, and keeps swinging while he says it. The report will state that he attacked the other members of his room with a weapon. Did the rest of you really just sit there quietly? The officer asks the room. Yes, sir, they answer, and even the boy who sleeps under the table answers it. 2 guards drag him out by both arms and write him off out loud as a lost cause. Lee Minsu, solitary confinement. Reflect on your mistakes in there. 15 days, which is the price of a fight that somebody else started and then reported. This is solitary confinement. Everybody who works here calls it the punishment room. Days spent in here do not count toward his sentence. He has extended it for nothing. Being alone in here is honestly pleasant. He catches himself wishing he had come sooner. Then a guard leans into the bars and tells him that lying down earns another day added to the 15 he already has. So he kneels, because kneeling is the required posture in here until lights out. And somebody is watching through those bars every hour of the day and night, and the light never goes off. The rope stays knotted around his wrists and ankles for the whole 15 days, and the knots are checked twice a day. They loosen it for the toilet, and he decides to count that as good news for himself. That good news lasts exactly as long as it takes him to sit down on it. Because there is no toilet paper anywhere in the cell, and he has now looked twice, and both times the answer was the same. The guard tells him to hurry up and finish, then tells him to look behind himself. There is nothing behind him except a tap in the wall and a drain in the floor. And 2 bound hands, which is apparently what he is expected to use instead. With my hands, he repeats, and nobody outside that door bothers to answer him through the door. Then a tray arrives, and the rope around his arms stays exactly where it has been all day. He asks whether they could untie him while he eats, which they treat as a joke off the tray. They could not, so he promises to crush every one of them the day he gets out of that room. At 7 in the evening, it is reflection time, and the punishment room is no exception. Which means double the essays, for a crime he still insists he did not commit, and he has to write them kneeling. So he uses the paper to draw everybody in room A, 1 page at a time, instead of apologizing. Tall and heavy, eats too much, cowardly, dim, and one of them is the pet. Everybody in that room is a problem, but only one of them is the actual problem, and the drawing makes that obvious. Ga Sejun gets a drawing, a question mark about his fighting, and a line straight through him. Then the lights go out, and he sleeps on concrete for the first time in 2 days. Which is when the other problem in his head starts up, and this one has no guard. There are 2 small boys in pajamas, standing side by side, casting one shadow between them on the wall behind them. There is a building burning behind them, and neither of the boys is moving at all, and neither of them ever does. The orange light sitting on their faces is the part he has never been able to get past. And then the dream moves closer to the 2 of them, the way it always does. He comes out of it with his mouth wide open, and no sound coming out of it at all. Bad memories keep surfacing, and he blames this room for dragging them up again. Every single night he closes his eyes. If he sleeps again, he is fairly certain the same one is waiting for him on the other side of it. So he spends the rest of that night kneeling on the floor, wide awake and choosing it. Then, 16 days later, a guard finally walks the corridor toward his door. The cells on either side of him stay shut as the footsteps pass along the corridor. Lee Min-soo, solitary lifted, return to your assigned room immediately. 2 of his roommates are already standing there waiting when he walks back in. Those 16 days changed his face a great deal more than they changed his opinion. They are sorry, they tell him, standing very close. They went a little too far before. Let's get along from now on, they say, which strikes him as suspiciously easy for boys who have never apologized for anything. He accepts their apology, and then asks for one from Ga Sejun on top of it. A foot answers that request, straight into the side of his head. Were you looking for me, mama's boy? Ga Sejun asks, already standing over him with his hands in his pockets. Grab him and shut his mouth quickly, somebody says from behind the 2 of them, and 2 of them move before he finishes. A cloth goes into his mouth so that no guard in the corridor hears any of this. Then they carry him toward the toilets, joking about a week-old pair of underwear one of them has been wearing. Too bad, Sejun says, because somebody in here is even more eager to see him than he is tonight. The one with the patterned scalp turns around, and he remembers where Min-soo hit him, and how hard. Holding back all day was hard, he says, and then he starts taking his clothes off. He cannot shout through the cloth, and not one boy standing in that room is stopping this. By then, a single eye is the only thing he still has open. Then the others go quiet, because somebody is standing in the doorway watching all of it. You must be the new guard, Sejun says. Don't interfere. We have permission for this, so he should walk back out. Nobody's permission counts, the man answers, and their punishment can wait until later, and he says it without raising his voice. Then a hand comes down toward Min-soo where he is lying on the toilet tiles. He looks up at it without understanding what is actually being offered to him after the last 20 minutes. Something in his eye changes before the rest of him has caught up with it. Then his own hand starts moving toward the one that is waiting for it, slowly, and without deciding to. The 2 of them meet in the air above a toilet floor. The man in the uniform tells him quietly that they are going home, as though that were a thing he could arrange. He says Min-soo, and Min-soo says the name straight back at him, Kang Yu-seong. The new guard is standing in the middle of room A, holding his own brother's hands. To understand how a guard ended up in that toilet, we go back a few weeks. There are soldiers marching a snow-covered battlefield, at least in the song being sung. A man in glasses is sweating his way through it into a microphone. He asks the room whether they can hear that fierce voice. He keeps going. There are 4 stars sitting on the beret of the man listening to him. A true patriot soldier, the general says. He is crying about it. He was once a young general of extraordinary character, an aide adds, and gets told to shut it. But making your own son a soldier by going round the paperwork is quite a luxury. Other politicians invent mental illnesses to keep their sons out of the army entirely. Outside, a whole unit is wondering why a 4-star general and a congressman are here. The general sings about army tigers, and nobody in the room can identify the song. The higher-ups say he must enlist immediately. Is he prepared for that? He answers, yes, father, because he has already prepared everything he needs to save his brother. While Min-soo waited for trial, Yu-song went looking for everybody who had been released. Every one of them told him the same thing, the same word, every time. So he came here deliberately, to get his brother out even a day sooner. That is the promise he made before he ever put the uniform on. Which brings us back to a hand held out over a toilet floor. Do exactly what I tell you, he says. You will be out of here soon. The plan is flawless, and following it makes every part of it work. There is a problem with the word flawless, because it collapses at the very first step, and it collapses immediately. Two of the seniors are already shouting at each other about the state of that room, and Minsu is screaming back that he will kill him. That is not the plan. The others cannot tell whether the new arrival is staff or simply a senior. Either way, this room has rules that it follows every single night. The rule is fighting, so Yusong offers to follow the room's rules tonight. No backing out afterwards. The two of them laugh. That lasts about a second. He does not take the glasses off. Meanwhile, Minsu is swinging at Ga Se-jun and demanding a real fight out of him. He slips it and asks whether flailing was genuinely supposed to work. The actual problem is that Minsu cannot keep his own balance while he swings. But something considerably more interesting is happening on the other side of the room. Watching three seniors go down in seconds, Se-jun stops looking at Minsu entirely. Three of them are down. It took almost no time. He has never encountered anybody who moves like that. He cannot place the style, which is when a foot lands in his face for standing there thinking about it. Hey, long hair, you are fighting me, not staring over there. He was planning to play it cool tonight and let the whole thing go. Now you are the pet, he says instead. Screw that, Minsu answers, and swings at him again. He catches him by the head before the punch has finished traveling, and Minsu does not understand what is happening. That is the worst part. Then a kick lands, and he works out that this boy is ridiculously strong. Do you know why the pet became the pet? Se-jun asks him. He says he does not care, and runs straight at him anyway. Because the pet used to be the leader of this room. Then he forgot where he stood. Exactly the way Minsu is doing right now. In this room you are the most pathetic one here, Minsu tells him. The answer is one strike. It ends the conversation. Then Se-jun pins him to the floor and holds him there without effort. He has been beaten by the one boy in this building who insulted his mother, and he did not land a single clean hit in the entire fight, which is what will keep him awake for 15 nights. He stays on the floor while the room simply moves on without him. Then a pair of boots stops beside his head. Every time he got hit, his brother's face arrived in front of him. The warden asks him from up there whether he is still alive. He manages a yes, which is about all he has left in him. The answer comes out of him almost automatically. Then he stops talking. His brother sighs at the whole situation, then lifts him over one shoulder and wonders aloud why he weighs nothing. He tells the room it is solitary, because causing a disturbance gets punished here. What about fighting me? Se-jun asks him, since he was clearly good at it earlier. Ah, right, the guard says, remembering something else entirely. Please stop fighting, she told me to tell you that. And Ga Se-jun is left standing there holding a word he was not expecting. Minsu wakes up behind a door marked solitary confinement, which is where he was 2 weeks ago, for a fight he also did not start. He has no idea how long he was unconscious for this time. The next time he sees that long-haired bastard, the hair is coming out. But his stomach hurts, and he has the feeling he has forgotten something important. Then the important thing arrives on a schedule of its own, and the tap will not run, which means he cannot wash the hand he has just used. There was tissue over there, a voice tells him. The tap runs again in the evening. Come to think of it, nobody restrained his hands this time either, and that is when he remembers what he forgot. He punches the door and asks the crazy new guard what he thinks he is doing. He found a good family and got into medical school, so he should go and live it. Just abandon a murderer instead of destroying an entire life over one. If his brother gets stuck in here with him, the guilt will finish him off. But who exactly called him a murderer? Yusong asks him through the door. I believe you did not kill anybody, Minsu. Because I am your brother. Are you crying in there? He asks. Minsu insists loudly that he is not. Follow the program. Stop landing in solitary like an idiot. And he gets out. He has one request, and the request is a rematch with the long-haired one. He can endure almost anything, and the last 2 weeks proved that to both of them. But not a word about his mother. So teach me. I will teach you how to win, his brother says. But lose again to the boy who insulted mother, and I will kill you myself. There are 15 days of solitary left before that fight can happen. In the room, everybody else is already asleep on the floor. 15 days is nowhere near enough time to build any physical strength, which leaves exactly one subject worth studying. It is labeled B2, Ga Se-jun. How to beat him. He asks his brother through the door whether any of this is enough to beat Ga Se-jun. If his brother read that boy correctly, he wins. If he loses, his brother kills him. You have memorized the tactics, comes the question, on the morning they let him out. Of course I have, he says, and walks back into room A. Two of them are waiting inside, and neither face is friendly about it. Solitary must have toughened him up, they decide. So perhaps they should test that. He did promise to turn every one of them into the pet, he reminds them. Then he does something none of them saw coming from a boy who just said that. Seeing no other way through 5 days, he drops into the pet's position himself. It simply seemed faster to become the pet, he explains, and barks it at them. The entire strategy his brother gave him is to hold it in. He endures whatever they do and waits for the one opening that has to come. Hold on long enough and the opening arrives. It always arrives. Which is difficult when the boy sitting on your back is cheating at a board game. 1 hour in, he stands straight up. The whole room startles. They ask whether he has changed his mind about being the pet, or is rebelling already. The one with the patterned scalp asks whether the hierarchy needs rearranging for him, but his brother said 5 days, and after 5 days the room gets handled properly. During lessons, all authority belongs to the warden, so the stage gets set then. So he sits back down and demands one more round of the game instead. They laugh about a rematch coming from the grade A pet himself. He tells himself to hold it. 5 more days of this. The second day arrives with a cloth and a floor. He crawls it on his hands and knees, making the machine noise they asked for. The buzzing is compulsory, and being visibly annoyed about it is not permitted. A cat riding a robot vacuum. One of them decides, so he meows for them too. The third day is reflection time, and his essays keep failing inspection. The light-haired one tells him, sorry for being born is not enough, so write it again. By the fourth day, this room has 2 pets in it, and they share the workload. At the table, the other 3 are watching him very closely indeed. Not one of them can quite look directly at what is about to happen. The spiky-haired one is sweating over his own plate about it, because Minsu is eating off the floor with his hands and calling it delicious. One more bowl, he says. Tomorrow this whole thing is finally over. Then he brings all of it back up in the toilet while Moon Hyunjin pats his back. The other one asks whether he is not overdoing this a little. An empty stomach makes you weak, he says, and holds something out to him. A sweet, bought with his own allowance, and Minsu is told not to tell the others. Minsu looks at it and genuinely does not know what to do with it. So keep giving it everything as a pet, Moon Hyunjin tells him, and leaves it there. The next day the yard is full and the sun is out for once. A blue frisbee goes up, and one of the seniors shouts at the pets to take it. Hyunjin jumps for it barking, because that is what the job is. He plays the role so well, they laugh. They call him Pet 2. Pet 1 is running, and his form is apparently something to see. One of them is laughing so hard about it that he has to point. Then Hyunjin runs straight into a group of boys wearing aprons. Of every unit in that yard, he has picked the kitchen crew. On his knees, he asks whether they would like to join the frisbee game. Across the yard, Sejun is lying on the ground watching all of this happen. Something about the whole picture has been bothering him for 2 days. How does a boy who arrived last month know people in other rooms? One inmate carries another past him without either of them explaining why. He wonders whether his sister sent that boy in here to look after him. Meanwhile, the kitchen crew are asking for whoever leads room A3. They stand over Hyunjin and ask whether the dog on the floor belongs to him. Then a foot goes onto his head. The word war gets used. An apology settles it, unless the leader is too scared to fight them properly. Forget it, Sejun says, because none of this needs to get bigger than it is. Nobody needs to heat this up, another one adds. Keep it reasonable. The one in the bandana repeats the word reasonable back at him slowly. Then he kicks Hyunjin in the head to demonstrate what he thinks of it. Is this how you command a room? He shouts, stamps down on him again. The A3 leader decides nobody starts a war over one pet. He turns away. So he asks the boy beside him whether the guards ever step in at all. The wardens leave small fights alone and let each room settle its own business, which is when Hyunjin asks anybody at all for help. The same boy who handed him a sweet and told him to keep it quiet. The wrapper is still in his pocket. He can feel it. He only has to hold out until lunch ends and lessons begin. Nothing is lost. Behind that piece of advice, 2 of them are still kicking him. The hits feel satisfying. One laughs and asks to borrow him for a few days. Then a blue frisbee catches him in the side of the head. The kicking stops. The frisbee keeps going. All 3 of them turn round at once. And Ga Sejun sits up. Pet 2 is standing there in a fighting stance, and he threw it. You lot caused enough trouble outside and brought every bit of it in here with you. In here they are livestock, with no pride and no dignity left to defend. Which is exactly why the only people they touch are the ones below them. He asks whether they are embarrassed when their dog gets beaten by another dog. Then a voice behind him says one word. Sejun told him not to interfere, and he has interfered anyway. Wait, a red-haired one says, asking whether this counts as declaring war on them. Sejun punches him before he gets to the end of the sentence. He tells him to go ahead and declare it. But there is an internal matter first. And Minsu is still kneeling over him. Sorry, he says. He apologizes out loud to a brother standing somewhere he cannot see. The yard cannot decide whether it is watching a war or a rebellion. Ga Sejun is going to crush the murderer, they agree. Start laying bets. There is no avoiding this now. So he keeps the second promise instead. Looks like you are itching for another beating, Sejun says, tying up his hair. He offers a bet, and the bet is that whoever wins becomes boss of the room. This time, he tells Ga Sejun he wins. Everybody locked in this building is still a minor, so they all sit basic classes. And during those classes, all authority in the building belongs to the supervising warden, and nobody above him checks. Phase 1 of the plan was simple enough. Make Minsu the leader of his room. Today he beats Ga Sejun and takes that title, in an environment prepared for it. The stage is set, and all that is missing is for the actors to walk in through that door. He checks his watch again, because neither of them has actually turned up. Then he hears shouting coming from somewhere outside the classroom window. Below him, a crowd has closed into a circle around 2 boys in the middle of the yard. They are laughing that the murderer cannot land a single hit on Sejun, and they are enjoying it. The perfect plan lasted right up until it was needed. His hand closes around the bars of the window frame in front of him. He gets exactly one word out before the rest of it arrives. Then he grips the bars and screams his brother's name into the yard. The whole building gets to hear a guard call an inmate a jerk at the top of his voice, because 5 days earlier the 2 of them went through this step by step. The first movement starts with a closed fist. A hook, his brother says, and shows him the exact angle to throw it from. Then comes the second one, thrown from the same guard position. A liver punch, which is the one that takes all the air out of a body. After that, the uppercut, aimed straight up underneath the chin. Then a mid-kick, driven hard into the side of the ribs. Then a low kick, which takes the standing leg out from under a man. After those, a front kick, a spinning kick, a roundhouse to finish it. And lastly, a straight punch, which closes the whole sequence out properly. Does any of that feel familiar? His brother asks him through the bars. He learned it briefly as a child, and never trained seriously a day since. Sejun fights well for a boy who has never trained a day. That is the whole problem. His moves look impressive, but there is no flow and no real combination in them. And yet Minsu still lost to him without landing a single clean punch, which is why the fight has to happen inside a classroom and nowhere else. Keep dodging. And Sejun eventually runs out of room to move around in, and that is the entire idea. The classroom has corners, and the corners are the entire strategy. Once he is trapped in one, the combination lands and the fight is finished. Except the crowd out in the yard is already bored of watching this one and starting to say so. Minsu is bleeding from the nose, and the whole thing is going badly, because out here, in an open yard, there is not a single wall. Meanwhile, Yusong is already running through a doorway toward them, already too late. He says out loud that his brother has never once listened to anything. There are too many bodies in the way, he cannot see it, so he abandons the plan and starts shouting at everyone to stop fighting. Something hits his glasses before anybody answers. The superintendent is in a chair eating popcorn through the entire thing, and he wants to know why a new guard is trying to end his fun. He salutes as new guard Kang Yusong and explains that the kids are fighting. Do you like watching Kingdom of Beasts? The superintendent asks him, quite seriously. He has absolutely no idea where any of this is about to go. Those foreign wildlife programs, the ones with the rats in them. A rat sits in the grass, minding its own business. Then, a hungry snake arrives, and the question is what the film crew does. Nothing at all, because a snake eating a rat is simply the natural order. In exactly the same way, nobody should interfere with the fight down there, he explains. Besides, watching fights is enjoyable, and this man is very obviously unwell. So they will enjoy it together, at least until one of them lands a hit. Down in the middle of that circle, Minsu closes his fist. The first one is a hook, and this one is only ever a fake-out. He asks what Minsu thinks he is doing, and takes it in the face. One clean combination and Sejun is finished, so please, just one hit, he thinks. The second one lands, and the crowd notices something has changed. Math class, he asks. Why is anybody counting numbers out loud? The third one goes up, because 2 always comes after 1. Then 4, 5, 6, and 7, and his reach is short and his stamina gone. So the only thing left available to him out here is taking hits. A kick sends him into the crowd, who complain about being hit themselves. It is over. Give up, and build another plan later. They tell the murderous loser to get lost while his knee gives out under him underneath him. Losing anyway, he might as well surrender before it costs him anything more. Then a voice above him asks how much longer he intends to stay down there. And he looks up, because he knows that voice. The crowd is screaming at him to fight back, or answer to them afterwards for wasting their afternoon. Mama's boy, Sejun asks him, are you down there looking for your mother? The bleeding one on the ground starts smiling at that instead. He asks what is funny, gets told it is nothing at all. It is just that he has remembered something useful. And he is grinning with a broken nose in the middle of that circle. What he remembered is the one thing his brother saved until the very end. He has found a way to land the whole combination on Ga Sejun after all. The crowd is complaining that walk time is nearly up, and nothing has happened. He calls him Mama's boy, and says they should finish this before the bell. Fine, Minsu answers, because he has just worked out how to use the sequence. The only problem left is how to make the man come to him. 5 days ago, the plan was to push Sejun into a corner and hold him there. But Sejun would never willingly let himself be cornered by anybody. So after cornering him, you bait him into stepping closer. That is harder. And if the bait fails, the entire plan is worth exactly nothing. Which is why his brother offered him a single sentence instead. He grabbed the bars and demanded to know why he was hearing this only now. One sentence, and Ga Sejun loses his composure completely. Back in the yard, he finally says it out loud. So what do you think of Ga Semin's face? The answer arrives as a punch. And the words, Mama's boy. Where did you hear that name? Sejun is screaming into his ear. The sentence worked. That surprises Minsu more than anybody. How do you know my sister? He demands. The crowd notices the change. He repeats Mama's boy straight back at him to keep it going. That is the best insult he has. This time the punch gets blocked. A hand closes in Sejun's hair before he can pull himself back out. Always clinging to your sister, Minsu tells him, and hits him with it. Just don't start crying for her now, he adds. And that is deliberate. What does knowing his sister have to do with this fight? Sejun asks. He steps back before the short punch can reach him at all. And Sejun discovers the space behind him is already full of people. The first one is a hook, thrown exactly where it was drilled into him. Here it comes, Minsu says, and there is nowhere left to dodge to. So Sejun decides he has to attack first instead of covering up. But the crowd behind him has trapped his arm. The second is the liver punch, straight into the side he left open. Trapped at the back, every movement he has is restricted to inches. The next one catches him clean across the face. The third is the uppercut, and there is no time left to think about it. Up at the window, Yusong finally understands what he is watching. He told his brother to use the desks and the walls of a classroom, and his brother is using 200 inmates as walls instead. 1, 2, 1, 2, and the sequence simply keeps repeating itself. Sejun cannot dodge and cannot swing. His head has started ringing. He tries to slip sideways out of the pocket he is standing in. The fifth one, a low kick, takes that leg away from him. Then back to the first, because the sequence loops and never stops. His right side is blocked by bodies that have no intention of moving, so he commits to going the other way instead. The fourth, a middle kick, asks him where he thinks he is going. There is no way out, and something else has gone wrong on top of that. The boy in front of him somehow seems bigger than he did 10 minutes ago. 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. Then he stops counting and just repeats 1. He cannot keep taking this, so he swings anyway and hopes. What are you doing? Minsu asks him, watching the punch arrive slowly. Does he really believe swinging at random is going to connect now? He told him not to talk about his mother, and this is the reason why. Thinking about it makes him angrier, and the counting stops mattering. The crowd starts asking each other whether Sejun is actually going to lose. He decides the next attack absolutely has to land or it is finished. It does not, and Minsu asks him what he knows about anybody's mother. The next one lands on a face that has stopped defending itself. Then another, and this has become something other than a fight. A kick puts Ga Sejun on the ground in front of the entire yard. The yard goes off, because not one of them expected this outcome. Half of them are still shouting about it. Minsu is standing over him with nothing left in his lungs at all, and Sejun is not getting up. Then a man in a blue jacket walks in and the whole yard salutes. He plants himself in front of Minsu with guards standing behind him. He is still trying to get his breathing back under control. Whatever the man is saying, the fight is over and the mouse beat the snake. A guard lifts Sejun over one shoulder and carries him out of the yard. They walk him straight past the boy who put him down. Neither of them says anything at all while it happens. The footsteps carry on toward the medical wing without slowing. He watches the whole thing until it has left the yard entirely. Then the guards push him off in the opposite direction. A day later, somewhere else, a woman with her hair up is painting at an easel. Yu-song is sweating, and it is not because of the fight yesterday. She picks up a pencil and looks straight back at him over the top of it, because a very heavily muscled man is posing with an apple among the statues. He does not appear to know where he is supposed to put his eyes. She tells him not to move, because right now he is the model, and the sketch on that easel is exactly what is standing in front of them. The look on his face does not recover from seeing it. She sits back down like none of this is unusual for an art room, because in here, apparently, none of it is. Later, the rehabilitation cafeteria opens for the evening service. Everybody eats in gray with a number printed across their chest. The line moves slowly toward the counter at the far end. 4 compartments on the tray, and 3 of them get filled. Then a very large arm in a white glove picks up the ladle. He holds his tray out the same way everybody else in that line does. Something thick and brown starts pouring onto it, and it keeps pouring long after the tray is completely full. He ends up holding a mound of food that nobody else received. The server with the braided hair is still going with the ladle, and the grin on that face says none of this was an accident. A very large arm in a white glove is holding the serving ladle. Minsu is standing underneath it with his tray held out like everybody else. Something thick and brown starts landing on the tray in front of him, and it keeps landing well past the point of any normal portion. He ends up holding a mound that nobody else in that line received. The server with the braided hair adds one more ladle for good measure. Then he grins at him with every tooth he owns, and he does not blink once while he is doing it. Minsu has questions about this. None of them are getting answered here. The man simply stands behind him, watching the tray he just ruined. Then he goes back to serving everybody else completely normally. So Minsu leaves that counter considerably faster than he arrived at it. He is grinning while he runs. That is its own answer. Elsewhere, a very different building is having a very different sort of day. The congressman with the mustache throws his arms open outside it. 3 men in suits walk in through a solid wall of cameras. He shakes hands with the president while every shutter in the room goes off. The photographers get every angle of the grip they came here for. Both hands stay exactly where they are for as long as the lenses are pointed. They were opponents in a campaign, and now one of them works for the other. Then the mustached one looks off to the side, at something behind him. In a pair of glasses nearby, his reflection is sitting in the lens. He slaps the congressman on the backside, hard, in front of the entire country. Then he does it again, and the cameras take all of it. The congressman's expression stops matching the occasion he is standing in. Teeth come together just out of the frame. A fist closes at the end of a very calm arm. And whatever he has been holding back stops being held back. The punch lands. On a photograph, in a private room, "Your father is being humiliated," he says. "What do you think about that?" The person he is asking is standing in front of a board covered in photographs. Bringing the president down, Yu-song says, is easier than either of them imagined. All they have to do is destroy the thing his whole reputation was built on, because that center is nothing like the institution he sold to the public. They force children to use violence on each other and then hose them down. They ignore every fight on purpose, because watching is part of the job. Yu-song has been writing all of it down since the day he walked in. His father folds his hands, because this is the weakness he has been waiting for. Leaking that description alone would be enough to finish Han Mansu. But his father tells him he is being hasty, pushes the glasses back up. These are criminals, and the public will decide they had it coming. The president can simply promise reform, and the entire story disappears. So he needs something far more explosive than what he has. He needs it soon. Back in the yard, a guard in a cap is running the afternoon session. Every boy around him is bent into the same position with his head near the floor. One of them is already shaking and cannot hold the pose much longer. The guards walk the rows with batons and take their time about it. The one with the goatee points a boy out of the line. That one is folded in half and losing his argument with gravity. A hand taps his leg, almost gently, to correct the angle of it. Then the guard simply stands there and watches him hold it. His face is upside down and running with sweat by this point. The guard in the cap looks entirely comfortable with the whole arrangement. That boy lets out a sound he was trying very hard not to make. The position does not get easier the longer anybody stays in it, and nobody up there is counting down toward the end of it. Another guard stops over another boy who is failing badly. Then a scream goes up from somewhere in the middle of the yard. Somewhere else, a document keeps a running number against every single name. Because this place runs on points, and Minsu is the one being told about it. 100 reward points qualifies a boy for a parole review. Nothing else does. Every rule he breaks takes points off. His current score is -50. 2 stretches of solitary and 1 brawl, and not a single reward point yet. The fastest way to earn them, his brother says, is volunteering as a kitchen helper. Min-soo rolls around on the ground rather than agree to any part of that. Those people will kill him, he says, and he is not being dramatic about it. He has already provoked the man who runs that unit, that his brother did not know. Fine, Yusong sighs. He will find another way to do this, which is a promise neither of them can keep, because the paperwork has already been filed in his name. Outside, the wind moves through the trees. Birds settle onto a branch as though none of this is happening below them. Inside, one boy is asleep with his head down on a desk. Then a hand slams that desk and shouts his name across the room. The rest of them are already bent into the punishment position on the floor. One of them is sitting on another one to make the whole thing worse. One of them coughs into his hand and pretends he has seen none of it. Then an inmate snaps into a salute. Because there are guards at the door, one of them points at himself. That is how they explain what happens next. The whole room follows him into exactly the same position, and Yusong's face gives up trying to look remotely professional. Because the man with the braided hair is standing over another boy again. The rest of them keep their eyes on the floor while he does it. And the boy he is looking down at has stopped smiling completely. A pan goes up over an open flame. The man with the braided hair runs this kitchen personally. He takes it seriously. Jang Dubo once intended to become the best chef in the country. Out front, one of them is brushing his teeth while another shouts about the queue. He is holding a bottle and a sheet of paper, and he is entirely unimpressed. Then he starts giving instructions that nobody appears to be following, because behind him the whole kitchen is coming apart at once. A pot full of skewers is sitting directly in the open fire. One of them is laughing while holding a pot of something completely black. A second one is stirring something purple that has no business being purple. The leader shouts at all of them, with actual tears in his eyes. Criticizing his cooking is the same as insulting him, and they do it daily. A gloved hand tightens around the handle of a heavy frying pan. He carries it right across the kitchen without saying a single word. Because the new boy at the far stove is actually cooking something, he stands over him with the pan raised, looking for a reason to use it. The rest of the unit stops breathing at roughly that point. Then food goes up out of the pan and lands back in it correctly. Min-soo is working two pans at once and has not looked up from either. Gloved hands come toward him from behind while he is still working, and lift him straight off the floor into the air. Min-soo has no idea what is happening to him. The leader is crying again, and this time it is for a completely different reason. This boy can actually cook. He is holding him over his head about it. In a storeroom somewhere, there is an actual mountain of snacks. 4 of them are sitting on the floor working steadily through it. They are having the best evening anybody in this building has had for months. Then a guard fills the doorway behind them. He does not even need to raise his voice about any of it. He checks his watch while the 4 of them lie on the floor. Another one in a cap watches from the side, quietly amused by it. Upstairs, 2 guards stand at attention and salute the man behind the desk. The man with the goatee raises both hands, delighted about what is coming. He sits there waiting for whatever the 2 of them have brought him. It is omelet rice, with a heart drawn on the top of it in ketchup. Both guards make a heart with their hands over the plate as they present it. Then they set it down in front of the superintendent himself. He eats it with a spoon while the 2 of them stand there watching. Downstairs, the cafeteria is preparing for something other than a meal. The leader is shouting at his unit again. This time they are listening. All of them line up in aprons and take the whole thing extremely seriously. Something green goes across a grater by hand, fast and evenly. The shavings go straight into a pan sitting over the fire. He holds up a gloved fist, satisfied with how the mixture is coming along. Then he produces something small, yellow, and covered in spikes. A whisk goes into the bowl and stays in there a very long while. It's done, he announces, and one of them asks how anybody eats that. He grabs his own head with both hands at that particular response. Nobody is meant to eat it. It is hair wax, and today is the day. So he fixes his hair, because the monthly supply delivery is arriving. In the storeroom, girls in uniform are cheering over the boxes they brought. A delivery vehicle came up that road from the women's center this morning. One of them is losing a fight with a box that is too heavy for her. A spiky-haired boy goes bright red carrying a box of green produce past her. A real man can lift this much, one of them announces to nobody in particular. So one of them climbs a ladder and puts another box on the stack. Min-soo watches the entire performance without joining in at any point, which is when 3 of the girls end up standing around him laughing. The leader's face does something very complicated about that. He keeps holding his box and pretending he is not looking over at them. Then something appears in front of him instead. A girl with a hair clip is holding out a white envelope to him. There is a red heart on it, and 2 pairs of hands on it at once. He takes it, and the sweating starts more or less immediately afterwards. She walks away looking back at him the entire length of the room. In his head, there is already a suit and a very long white dress. The whole facility is applauding while vegetables rain down on the aisle. An onion hits him in the head. The daydream does not even pause. The 2 of them are sitting together somewhere with a bouquet between them. There is a daughter in it, making a peace sign at whoever is looking. And a family photograph with more children in it than he can name. He is crying and grinning at the same time, holding an unopened envelope. Then his hands open it to find out what she wrote in there. To the leader of Group A, it says, with a small heart drawn beside it, and the entire wedding stops. Inside one wide eye. Across the kitchen, Min-soo is lifting a cardboard box with both arms. He crouches down to deal with something on the kitchen floor. Then a very large shadow arrives directly over the top of him. The leader says something with his eyes doing most of the work. Because as far as he knows, the leader of Group A is Lee Min-soo. Whatever he has been holding in since the delivery, he stops holding it. Min-soo understands about a second too late to move. The leader screams loud enough to fill the entire kitchen. Then a fist comes down at a boy who stole nothing. Min-soo gets both hands up, which against this particular man is not going to help him. The punch misses and goes into the wall. the wall loses. A fist that size does genuine structural damage to a working kitchen, and the tiles crack with it. Left crouched on the tiles, he finds the whole unit leader standing over him. If he had not moved when he did, his skull would already be open on that floor. So he puts a foot into him. Waiting is not working. Then he goes straight over the top of him, while the man is still turning round. Whatever this fight is actually about, it has a woman's name attached to it. A shoe comes down hard on the tiles somewhere behind the counter as he lands and keeps moving. The leader swings his arm down and takes another piece out of the room with one swing of it. Lying on the floor again, he discovers something in his body has stopped working. The man coming at him is well past listening to anything anybody says about calming down now. Another swing goes into the wall directly beside his head instead of into it, so he throws one back, which is the only option he has left in here with any chance of landing. It does not land, and the answer catches him square across the face, hard enough to turn his head. The wall takes the next one as well, because he moved by about an inch, and no more than that. His head is ringing, and the sweat is coming off him in the motion of the whole exchange. And his eyes have gone wide, in a way they never once did out in that yard. That arm comes down on top of him again while he is still on the ground and trying to breathe. He holds his own face and finds that everything inside it hurts. Then something large gets picked up and thrown across the whole kitchen at him without any visible effort. The next swing brings that same object back around in one full arc, aimed at his head this time. It hits the wall rather than hitting him. That is becoming the pattern instead of him. Backing into a curtain, he runs out of usable room in that kitchen entirely, and he says something that nobody in this kitchen is going to hear over the noise in there. The fist comes at him again with the whole weight of the man behind it and all of his weight, and the wall behind him takes yet another hit intended for his head instead of finding it. I don't, the leader starts, and cannot get near the end of that sentence. So Minsu grabs the arm instead of trying to outrun something moving that fast across a room this small. His hand closes into the fabric of the sleeve, and simply stays there, no matter what happens next. The man keeps swinging with a teenager attached to his arm the whole time, and refusing to let go. The kitchen becomes one long exchange that neither of them is winning. Then Minsu ends up behind him, holding on across the man's back with both arms locked around him. A gloved hand comes over his face and covers most of it at once, fingers and all. Then it closes around his head properly, and starts squeezing inward like a piece of fruit. His eyes go red, and the pressure is doing exactly what it is built to do. The other arm pulls back for the one that ends this. A hand grips the fabric one more time before it happens, then it comes down. And the punch lands. There was nowhere to go. At the far end of the kitchen, people in aprons are arriving with deliveries. One of them is reading a delivery document out loud to the others while they unload. 3 of them are talking it over without looking up from the paperwork in their hands, and one is carrying a box with supply onions written along the side of the cardboard. Meanwhile, the leader is still standing over Minsu at the other end of the same kitchen. He reaches down for him again, with no intention of stopping anytime soon. So the chase runs right through the middle of a working kitchen service during a live service. The leader is panting by now, because the boy simply will not stand still. Then something wet arrives across the side of his face without warning at all. Minsu is holding a full tray of eggs and has very clearly decided something about how this ends. The unit leader now has yolk running down his cheek in front of his own crew. A hand closes around a teapot as the escalation carries on regardless entirely. Minsu picks up a pot of his own and keeps backing toward the door with it held up. Then he jumps with a spatula while vegetables go in every direction across the floor. There is hot oil sitting in a pan by this point in the fight, which nobody planned for. And the leader swings that pan around with everything still inside it and swinging hard. Over at the door, one of the delivery girls is carrying her box through with both hands. A hand turns the doorknob at precisely the wrong moment of the day for everybody involved. She steps into the doorway holding that box up in front of her chest and sees nothing coming. The contents come off that pan and travel the whole length of the room in one clean arc. The leader's expression changes before any of it has landed on anything at all. Because it is going to land on her. There is no time to stop it. A hand closes on the doorknob at the worst possible second of the afternoon. A girl in a red apron with C2 on her uniform steps and holding a box. And it is already in the air, on its way to her face. The cooking unit leader's face empties out completely as he watches it go, because there is nothing between it and a girl who came to deliver onions. A hand moves across the room far too late to matter to anybody, except Minsu gets there first, and he does not stop to think about it. She gets one hand up, which would have done nothing at all for her. Minsu puts himself over her and takes the whole thing across his own back. Meanwhile, a pair of legs is running flat out down a corridor upstairs. Kang Yusong is sprinting through the building with his glasses crooked, because the message that reached him did not include the word oil. His brother is not allowed to get hurt in here, under any circumstances. A woman in white with a clipboard is waiting for him at the curtain. A hand pulls that curtain back so he can see what is behind it, and whatever is on that bed puts sweat straight onto his face. Leaning over the bed before he asks anything, Yusong looks at what is on it. A boy is already leaning over that bed, smiling about the whole arrangement. A fist closes beside him, slowly, on its own. Then he starts walking toward the person doing the smiling. Because there is a skeleton in that bed, Minsu put it there. He gets pulled into a hug he was not expecting in front of the staff. Then a hand clamps down on top of his head and stays there. His eyes go wide, because this is somehow worse than the beating was. Behind them, the woman in white is putting the skeleton's arm back. Yusong's mouth opens and everything he was holding in comes out at once. He talks at his brother in a room neither of them wants to be standing in. Somewhere else, a scarred face is grinning about all of this from a distance. Yusong drags a hand through his hair and tries to think of a way out. Yes, Warden, one of them answers upstairs, and both of them look delighted. Then a pair of sunglasses gets adjusted carefully into place. Out in the yard, boys are doing handstands against enormous boulders, shirtless, upside down, pushing stone across the ground with their shoulders. Two of them are shaking through the same set against the same rock. The man in the cap watches from in front of the building without a word. He adjusts the sunglasses again, and he is enjoying himself enormously. Both of them look up at something they were not expecting to see. He leans on a boulder and talks down at the boy working underneath it. Because Minsu is upside down pushing a rock across the sand, he is doing handstand push-ups against the thing while he moves it. The sunglasses go back into place, satisfied with the progress being made. Then something considerably larger appears in the corner of the yard, and he is underneath a concrete tetrapod instead of a boulder. Pushing that across the ground is a completely different problem, because Jang Dubo is 3 weight classes above him. You can win, his brother tells the boy sitting in the dust. He says it leaning on the rock, like it is a fact, rather than encouragement. Then he crosses his arms in front of an upright slab taller than both of them, and the boy on the ground has to look up to find the top of it. Sitting alone with his hands folded at his chin, Ga Sejun is replaying something. He is replaying a fight he lost in front of the entire yard. Every exchange of it, in order, and the ending, never changes. Then he is on a tiled floor with his head in both hands. Alone, in a small room, holding his own skull together with his fingers. He clasps his hands near his face and stays like that for a while. His eyes close, and whatever he is thinking does not get any easier. Then his fist closes. The expression changes completely. Whatever he decided it with that hand shut. A hand clenches a piece of fabric on the floor and does not let go. A roll of toilet paper rolls away across the tiles. Because he has already used half a sleeve and the tap has been cut off. Then he looks off to the side. His clothes are visibly torn. Don't we? He says. From the other side of a set of bars, a hand takes hold of one of those bars without shaking at all. Yusong is standing outside that room looking straight into it. Then Sejun comes over the top of him, without any warning at all. A gray sleeve grabs the arm of a dark blue uniform and pulls hard. And holds it, which is more than most people in this building manage. Then the uniform puts him face down on the floor instead. A hand presses his head against the tiles and simply keeps it there. And the other one comes up ready to finish the argument for good. Looking off to the side, sweating, he stops himself halfway through it. Because his phone is out with a call on the screen 2 seconds old. Somewhere quiet, a room with a plant in it is buzzing. The phone on the surface says 11 minutes past 3. A hand picks it up and brings it to an ear without hesitating. And Ga Semin is smiling before she has even said hello. Yusong has him pinned with a fist already up and nowhere for Sejun to go. Sejun shuts his eyes and waits for the part of this that he already knows is coming next. Then one eye opens. Whatever arrived was not a punch. It is a phone held in front of his face with a live call running on it. Somewhere quiet, in a hallway with a plant in it, something starts buzzing on a wooden table. A phone on a surface says 11 minutes past 3 and keeps going. Then a girl with long dark hair picks it up without checking the name. Whatever she hears takes the color straight out of her face, all at once. And then, a second later, she is smiling at the phone like an idiot. Yuzong is standing in a doorway with the same call held to his own ear. He covers his ear, because this is not a conversation he wants to be part of any part of. On the other end, she is using every word she has learned in 18 years and saved for exactly this. And Ga Sejun is on his knees holding that phone in front of a block of stone. Whatever she said, his face has stopped doing what it was doing. Out in the yard, that block of stone is still standing upright and waiting. An arm goes against it with every vein in it standing out against the surface. And the body attached to that arm is already shaking on the ground from the effort of it. Minsu is upside down against the block with the whole yard watching. He is still there the next time anybody bothers to look over at him. A long time later, the others sit and talk about it, because it has become part of the furniture out there now. Even the cooking unit leader looks down at what is happening out there from the doorway. One of them says a thing about him that nobody in that yard disputes, and Minsu is on the ground again, breathing like the air costs money and running out fast. Back inside, there is a locked door with a decision sitting behind it. Yuseong stands beside that door while Sejun sits on the floor with the phone. A finger comes down on the screen, and the hand attached to it is shaking quite badly. Then it moves to the keypad, and stays there a moment longer than it needs to work up to it. Sejun looks at that phone as though it might change its mind about him about all of this. A small figure is watching all of this from behind the doorframe. Yuzong straightens his collar, because his part of it is finished now, at least for tonight. Sejun sits cross-legged with the phone lying on the floor in front of him, and the corner of his mouth moves for the first time in months. Then he looks up, and whatever he decided has already been decided for the both of them. Yusong looks down at him without giving anything away about it about what happens next. Teach me, Sejun says. Neither of them says anything else. Over at the cafeteria, the evening service is about to become a problem. 5 of the kitchen crew are standing around talking about what they can hear from the storeroom. The leader is crouched down with a face that has run out of patience entirely with any of them, because Minsu is laughing at him in the middle of his own kitchen. The leader's expression goes somewhere past anger and simply keeps going. He stands there with his head down while the rest of them wait for it, because they know the sound. Then he charges across the kitchen shouting loud enough to shake the pans, and a boot stops dead on the tiles, because Minsu is standing there with his head bowed, waiting for him. The name tag says Lee Minsu, and the posture says something else entirely. Then he looks up, and the grin on him is not an apology of any kind at all. The leader's teeth come together hard enough to hear across the room over the noise of the fryers. He screams and brings both fists up at a boy half his size and roughly half his weight. The rest of the crew take a step back, rather than get involved in this in any part of it. An open hand comes at Minsu fast enough to take his head off if it ever connects, and Minsu moves out of it, looking delighted about the whole thing happening to him. The leader goes over a metal counter after him and misses by a distance, so the chase goes round those counters while the crew watch it happen. Then a foot comes down hard, and the running part of this stops for good this time. The leader throws a punch with everything he has behind it, and both feet planted. It hits the wall. Minsu was not standing there. His fist ends up buried in the crack it has just made in the plaster of that kitchen wall, and Minsu winds one up of his own, while the man is still stuck in it trying to pull himself free. It lands clean on the leader's face in front of his entire unit. The room hears it land. The open hand comes back at him with the last of the man's patience left in him, and Minsu catches that arm and stops it dead in the air between the two of them. He is holding it with a broken nose and a grin that frightens his own crew. A shoe plants itself on the tiles for whatever is coming next between them. The two of them strain against each other over a metal counter, and neither gives an inch. And Minsu has his teeth bared. That is what they remember. 2 wine glasses and a lit candle are set out on a table upstairs. The superintendent sits down to it with a knife and fork already in hand. And the man serving him wears white gloves, a waistcoat, a pair of glasses. Whatever is on that platter makes the superintendent laugh out loud. Then those gloves pour 2 things into a metal shaker without spilling any. And shake it properly, because apparently this is the job now. It comes back as a martini glass with raspberries balanced on a skewer. He drinks it, and Yusong sweats through the entire performance. Downstairs, half the unit is watching a fight happen in their own kitchen. The cooking unit leader has hold of Minsu, and neither of them is letting go. Then something in that kitchen gives way. He throws a punch with the whole of his body behind it, and the look on his face changes halfway through the swing, because Minsu blocks it instead of moving out of the way for once. A hand grips at his own neck with every vein standing up in the strain. The leader shouts something that does not slow anything down at all. Then a punch gets through, and Minsu takes the whole of it across the jaw. Days earlier, the officer in sunglasses stood over him by the rock. Minsu was face down in the dirt with his tongue out and nothing left. The officer pointed at his own head. That was the lesson. Next to a taller inmate, the word written above Minsu is simply small. Next to Jang Dubo, it stops being funny at all, because that is 3 weight classes. So he ends up on his hands and knees again, out of breath and out of excuses. The rock and the tetrapod are both still out there waiting for him. Fulcrum, force, point of application, mapped onto a head, a foot, and an arm. Then he does push-ups with a rock sitting across his own back, and the rock drags a little further across the sand each time. Back in the kitchen, the two of them are locked together again. The leader shouts and swings with everything he still has in that kitchen. One of those lands, and the sound of it fills the whole room. But Minsu is still standing in front of him afterwards, still moving. Then the leader takes one back, clean, in front of his own crew. It lands on the side of his face and turns his head halfway round. And the next one is already on the way before he recovers. Upstairs, the superintendent and his new server are still at that table. He eats and smiles about something he has noticed in the man beside him. Yusong pushes his glasses up and offers him absolutely nothing. The basic stance of every striking art exists to protect the face and head. And the reason is the jaw. Dubo never learned that. A fist closes somewhere in the middle of that kitchen and stays closed. Then it goes straight through the gap the leader left open. He gets one more in, because he is still enormous and still dangerous. Then his expression stops matching what he thought was happening a minute ago. A boot comes up from the smaller one and finds the same gap again. The next strike lands hard enough to be heard out in the corridor, and the one after that ends the argument for good. Somewhere in the leader's head, a girl is waving goodbye to him. He puts a hand up, though it is not clear who he is putting it up to. Minsu closes the distance and finishes the sequence properly this time. The wedding in his head gets as far as the aisle and no further. And then the leader of the cooking unit is down. The rest of the kitchen starts shouting about what they have just seen. Upstairs, the superintendent asks how he knew that boy was going to win. Yusong smiles at him and keeps both hands exactly where they are. A hunch, he says, and the superintendent calls that interesting out loud. Then the boots start moving back down the corridor toward the stairs. Minsu is sitting on him, breathing, holding a letter with a heart on it. The leader covers his face and cries where the letter fell out of his hand. Minsu opens it, and the look on him changes while he is reading it. Every inmate in that kitchen crowds in to find out what it actually says. Weeks of a rock on his back are what bought him this exact moment, and the leader stays pinned to the floor of his own kitchen. Somewhere else in this building there is an area nobody talks about. 2 guards stand at that door and let absolutely nobody through it. Behind it, a voice is saying something the guards on the door cannot hear. It is a poker table, with chips and cards laid out across it. A man in a red shirt is holding a glass and a hand of cards. Outside, the facility looks exactly the way it always looks from the road. Inside, a hammer comes down on something that is not a nail. Inmate F2 FB18 is screaming on the ground with a nail through his hand. A red-haired man with tattoos is smiling in the middle of it, enjoying it. He spreads his arms wide over the person lying on the floor. Then a circular saw starts throwing sparks off something metal in the same room. A boy in a welding mask is cutting. Nobody is stopping any of it. And one face in that room is sweating for a completely different reason. Back at the table, the red shirt pours himself another drink and takes his time. He looks at his cards as though none of the noise concerns him at all. A hand pushes chips into the middle of the table without a word, and the blonde one in the red shirt simply keeps playing his hand. A pot of chopped vegetables goes over an open flame, and this time it goes properly. Minsu runs the pan himself now, seasoning it while the fire comes up the sides of the pan, and nobody is shouting at him. He looks up while the rest of the kitchen works behind him without a single fire. The rice cooker is open and the rice is coming over the top of it. There is crab and octopus plated up, which is not what this facility serves to anybody, ever, and the crew have noticed. And a kettle is sitting on a live flame, which nobody thought through before they lit the ring under it. His mouth opens, because at least one of those things is about to go wrong. Out in the yard, the monthly delivery is in and everybody is carrying boxes across the gravel toward the store. One of them is up a ladder, and for once, the whole thing runs like a normal workday. Looking off to the side, Minsu sees something he was not expecting today on a delivery day. A girl in a gray uniform is looking back at him and asking what. He smiles at her with his eyes shut, which is the wrong move in most situations. Then she holds out a letter with a heart drawn on the front of the envelope. It is addressed to Minsu, and it takes him a moment to understand that it really is and not to the room. Then she runs, and he is left holding it in the yard with no idea what to do with it. Opening it, he finds something on the page he cannot immediately explain to himself or to anybody else. Because the last letter he was handed had another boy's name on it, and it cost him 3 weeks. In his head, there is already a house like a painting with a family outside it. And then the memory of how any of this started arrives to ruin the whole moment he was allowing himself. Because a girl in a gray uniform once took a face full of oil that was meant for him. A hand moves fast. It is not moving to help anybody, and nobody in that yard intervenes. A girl in gray throws liquid over another one, and it is not the first time, and the guards can see all of it. There is a fence with barbed wire running between the two centers out there, and she is standing behind it. On the side of that fence nobody would choose. Then a foot goes into her, and this has clearly been happening for a long time. A blue lid spins away across the ground. Nobody picks it up while she is still on the ground. And a punch lands on a face that was not defending itself, because she had stopped trying. Her tag reads, C2FD03, and there is metal in the air in front of her face. Somewhere else in that yard, Minsu drops into a stance for reasons of his own. Behind her, a girl called Sarah is holding a metal tool over her own head. On a surface nearby there is soap, a toothbrush, and a red cookbook nobody reads. A blue tool goes across one of the pages while the others watch her do it. A finger goes to her lips, because none of this is ever reported to any member of staff. 3 of them close in around one girl with the same expression on every face while she kneels there. A hand comes up to touch her face, and she has nowhere safe to put her eyes that will not get her hit again. Back on the other side of the hill, Minsu is sitting and reading his letter again. Then 4 faces appear above him, and not one of them is smiling in the slightest. Sweating, he looks up at them, still holding the paper in both hands as though paper could protect him. They close in to find out exactly who wrote it and what she wrote to him and how far it has gone. And a hand takes the paper before he can fold it away and read it out loud. Elsewhere in that building, a man in uniform knocks twice and waits to be called. Yusong straightens up and salutes, not a word out of place to whoever is inside. The warden takes the salute without getting out of his chair or looking up. Then Yusong walks out, and a very large man is waiting in the corridor, and he has been waiting a while. A hand lands on his shoulder before he has taken 3 more steps down that corridor. The man with the mustache leans in close. This has stopped being casual for either of them. And behind the glasses, Yusong is calculating exactly how much this man knows about his own brother. The grin that answers him has far too many teeth in it to be reassuring. Whatever gets said next widens one eye behind those glasses. The man stays leaning in, smiling, and does not explain a single word of it to anybody standing near him. Later, in a room with a white wall, the water is already running on nobody. Minsu is standing under it with his head down and the water on full and his back to the door. Then his face changes. He is no longer alone in there, and he did not hear anybody come in. There is something small and green in the palm of a hand. Nobody in here is issued that, and this is a prison. A bottle of shampoo gets held out to him, and nobody in this building is issued one. Turning round with it in his hand, he finds out who has been standing there the entire time he was washing. The boy showering beside him wears red and has no grade marked on his chest, which should not be possible. Next time, Lim Jisoo tells him, "You come and find me." Then he walks out. Yuseong is standing behind his own brother, and neither of them can acknowledge it. And there is sweat on his cheek. Nobody here can be allowed to see it in this entire building, because the man with the goatee has put his own face directly next to his, close enough to count the pores. Whatever he just said, he thinks it is the funniest thing anybody said this week. Keeping his expression flat, Yuseong plays the only card he currently holds against a man like this. The man laughs harder and closes both fists, enjoying every second of it of a man who cannot answer back. Then 4 uniforms close in around him, throwing punches at the air near his head like a joke they all share. He looks down and lets them run the whole routine without reacting to it for their report. Then he pushes his glasses up and walks past him, as though none of it happened, and nobody stops him. He leaves that office without looking back once, because looking back would cost him. Behind him, the man with the goatee sits down, and the smile has gone off his face for the first time all morning. Then a hand starts dialing. It is not an internal line, and the call is about him. He has surveillance of a guard standing far too close to an inmate, and he wants to know why. The nameplate on that desk reads Warden. The name on it is Cha Jae-pyong, and he has been here 3 months. In another part of the building, Ga Se-jun is sitting against a wall with nothing to do. His hair is over his face and his tag reads B2FA, which is all anybody knows him by in this whole building. His sister is on that phone, calling him every name that exists, one after another, without stopping. A worthless brother who got locked up and started fighting inside. He does not argue. He listens to every word without hanging up, which he would never have done before or 3 weeks ago. and his face does something it has not done since he arrived here. His eyes narrow. Something in that call landed that he had left undefended. Further down, that corridor of doors runs on a long way, and everyone is occupied. And the cooking unit leader is curled up on one of those floors, where he has been for days. He is crying hard enough that it has stopped being funny to anybody listening. Standing in the doorway, Yusong looks down at the man on that floor without saying anything at first. The noise coming out of him fills the entire block, and none of the guards come, and no guard comes to look. Yusong's eyes go wide, because he did not expect this from a man built like that and twice his own weight. He clenches both fists and keeps screaming at something nobody else can see standing anywhere near that cell. So Yusong holds up a phone with something on the screen and waits for him to look at properly until he stops screaming. It is a photograph of a young woman standing beside a long-haired boy in daylight, and the sun is out in it. The two of them are outside a building, standing far closer than strangers do, and the noise that comes out of him after that is not a word in any language at all, Because those two are brother and sister. The letter was never his to lose in the first place. Yusong steps back and the cell shuts, leaving the man alone with that photograph. He looks off to the side, because the shouting behind him has not stopped yet and shows no sign of stopping. He has both hands on the bars, screaming through them at the cell opposite. His own hands come up to his face and press into it until his voice gives out somewhere down that corridor. Yusong walks the long corridor with his hands in his pockets, past every reaching hand that comes out of a door. He straightens his tie, because there is somewhere else he intends to be before the shift changes over. Two guards stand in front of a door marked restricted area, and neither one moves. Looking round the corner, he counts how many there are and which one carries keys. If I take this to reporters, his father says, it is still not enough. So he watches the two of them hold that door, and does nothing about it for the moment. Then something down the corridor makes him grit his teeth hard enough to be heard from where he is standing. A hand comes past him on the edge of a stretcher. That hand is in bad condition and it is not moving either. The boy on it has blood around his mouth. He is not moving or making a sound while they carry him past. Guards carry him past while Yusong watches from 10 steps away, saying nothing. And whatever he sees on that stretcher opens both of his eyes very wide behind both lenses. They carry him through the doorway, into the part Yusong cannot follow. A boy in red is standing in that doorway watching all of it without expression. The sign above them still says no entry for unauthorized personnel, and it means him, which apparently includes new guards, and that includes sergeants. Then a voice behind that door speaks directly to him, and it is not a warning. Yusong turns round fast. He was not supposed to be seen by anybody standing behind that door. A hand in a red sleeve comes out toward the wall, blocking the way he came in. The jacket is open, and the boy wearing it is built like a problem, and Lim Jisoo is already smiling. He has been expecting this visit for a while now. The block of cells is quiet, which by now usually means something is happening. Two of them are sitting back to back with a solid wall between them. Sitting with his eyes shut and his hands folded, Ga Sejun is deciding something. On the other side of that wall, Jang Dubo has a hand over his own mouth. Because the girl in that photograph is Sejun's sister, he is hugging his own knees on a concrete floor about it. Neither of them is going to be the one who speaks first through that wall, so Sejun faces forward and keeps whatever he is thinking to himself. His folded hands are shaking. The name tag does not explain why. Then something behind his eyes settles on a course of action. Elsewhere, the boy in the open red shirt has not moved from that doorway. Minsu points at his own neck, at the collar every inmate in here wears. The boy in red has no grade on his chest and no collar on his neck. He reaches out and puts a hand flat on top of Minsu's head. Then he pets him, which is worse than being hit would have been. Minsu's face does not know what to do with any part of that. Smaller than I imagined, Lim Jisoo says, and looks away like it is settled. The two of them are standing in a room full of lockers. Minsu scratches his head, holding a bottle he never asked anybody for. Later, there is a pot of noodles with fish heads floating in the top of it. And the entire kitchen crew is standing around it, not moving at all. Watching nobody else move, Minsu picks up chopsticks and eats the thing himself. Every man behind him reacts as though he has swallowed poison. He keeps eating, because it is genuinely not as bad as it looks. Behind him, Jang Dubo has arrived with completely empty eyes. Then Dubo raises both arms above him and the room stops breathing. One eye goes wide. Last time he did that, he broke a cart. And Jang Dubo drops into a full bow on the kitchen floor. He is sweating with his eyes shut and his mouth open, apologizing. He mistook him for another boy and tormented him for weeks over it. And now Ga Sejun is his brother-in-law. So revenge is off the table entirely. Minsu reaches a hand down and tells him they should eat the ramen together. The rest of them cheer in gray uniforms and pink rubber gloves about it. Then Dubo lunges again, because a second girl has written to Minsu. And Minsu ends up grinning, red in the face, in the middle of all of them. Which is a lot of affection for a boy who arrived as a murderer. The next morning, there is a blue bus parked outside the block with the engine on. Minsu is on the ground, refusing to go anywhere near it. Because volunteer work means missing the day he was going to answer Sarah. The whole group is watching whatever is happening down there on the gravel. Then a boy from another room starts shouting about who works for whom, and takes hold of Minsu's collar, because asking had not worked. A guard shouts and points, which ends that particular argument fast. He walks the line between the two groups and counts every head twice. A freckled one points something out to him and names Park Taeho. Wang Hyuk starts to say that it was the other group who began it. The guard punches him in the face before he gets to the end of it, then hits him again, in front of everybody waiting to board that bus. Minsu watches it with his teeth showing and says nothing to anybody. The other group whisper and laugh, because this guard is clearly theirs. Wang Hyuk grabs his own head and keeps begging him to stop. Then a hand closes around another hand and holds it still. Yuseong is the one holding it, and he arrived at exactly the right moment. The guard scratches his head and explains that the kids nearly fought. "Let's get on the bus, kids," he announces, and walks the other group away. So they line up toward the doors in something that almost looks orderly. Yusong asks Wang Hyuk whether he is still able to do the work today. Then he presses a hand against his own forehead where nobody can see it. "You were not thinking of hitting a guard just now?" he asks Minsu. Minsu grins over his shoulder and asks how he could possibly think that. The side of the bus says emergency transport for the rehabilitation center. Inside, Moon Hyunjin is beaming while Minsu works something out. Then a foot arrives in his eyeline from the seat behind him. Both of them look at it. Neither one says anything useful about it. The two in front have their feet up and are enjoying themselves enormously. "If you have a problem," their leader says, "fight my boys and see how it goes." Then a white sneaker comes down in the aisle beside them. And Minsu looks up at whoever has decided to walk down that aisle. The one with the shaved head looks up too, and stops laughing at once, because Ga Sejun is standing in the middle of the bus saying nothing. He does not need to say anything. That is the point. The two with their feet up take them down without being asked twice. Minsu watches the whole thing happen from 3 rows back. Then Sejun looks away, having made the only point he came to make, and sits down in the seat directly beside Lee Minsu, of all the empty seats. The bus fills up around the two of them for a very long ride. The bus stops at a nursing home, which is where volunteer points come from. A man named Byun Seok-shin briefs the staff in red vests about what is arriving. He shakes hands with the officer who brought them and hopes for positive change. Then the staff start handing out cups to boys who have not seen one in months. They take one sip and start shouting that this is the taste of childhood. The residents are already outside, and most of them are in wheelchairs. Neither group is entirely sure how any of this is supposed to work. Sejun drinks his, while one of the others shouts about the cola. Then he looks across the garden and stops drinking altogether. A woman in a red vest is talking to one of the residents over there, and Sejun sprays the whole mouthful across the ground. Because his sister works here. Nobody warned him. The program begins with hands washing feet in basins of soapy water. One boy kneels and washes an old man's feet while a camera is pointed at him. The whole group does it, because the photographs are the actual product. One of them wipes his forehead and works out how long this is going to last. Kneeling in that line, Minsu is enjoying it no more than anybody else is. A pair of feet goes down into the water in front of him. So he washes them, and even says the grandfather must have had a hard life. He gets something close to a smile out of the whole exchange. Looking up to ask whether that feels better, he finds it is not a grandfather. A wet foot goes into the side of Minsu's face instead. "Wipe it clean," Cho tells him, and asks whether he wants the job permanently. Minsu goes for him, and Moon Hyunjin catches him around the arms, because there is an officer photographing all of this for the paperwork, and the whole group laughs, because they know exactly why he cannot move. So he grits his teeth and keeps every part of it inside his own head. From above, the nursing home looks like an extremely peaceful place. A woman in a red vest pushes a resident through the garden, smiling, and the woman with the ponytail is somewhere in among those trees. Sejun pushes a wheelchair along the same path she happens to be walking. She sits on a bench and works at her own neck with both hands. He looks straight ahead and does not say one word to her. She was sent to that center for beating a man who deserved it. 2 residents sit facing away while the 2 of them say nothing. "One day," she says, "both of us are going to be old like this." Sejun puts a hand on his chin and does not answer the question. "So think carefully about what kind of old person you intend to be." Then she pushes her resident away down the path and leaves him with it. Inside, the kitchen staff in pink aprons are plating up the lunches. The boys carry them out and help the residents in the dining hall. One of them is genuinely feeding an old woman with a spoon. Then he looks up, because there is crying coming from another table. Cho is holding food in front of an old woman and taking it away again. And Minsu goes off at him across the entire dining hall. The answer is a bowl of soup over the top of his head. "Sorry," they say, "they did not spill it on him on purpose." 2 of his own room hold him back while a third one enjoys it. A guard raises a camera, because all of this is being documented. And his face while he does it says nothing about stopping any of it. Minsu ends up standing between them, soaked, saying nothing at all. 3 of them laugh in the middle of a hall full of elderly residents. "Money is the only real power," Cho explains, "and he has a great deal of it. A is murder, B special assault, C theft and fraud, D drugs, E assault." On a screen, a company chairman is being released on bail for his health. Reporters crowd a man in sunglasses being wheeled out of custody. "With money," Cho says, "even the law will stand in front of you." And the rest of them cheer, because that is what they are being paid for. Meanwhile, the white-haired one keeps quietly feeding a resident. Later, in the bathhouse, the water is running on nobody at all. Steam comes off the pipes, with the red and blue taps turned wide open. 3 of Cho's boys are standing in there smoking. 2 are laughing, because there is an elderly man on the floor at their feet under that water. And the water coming down on him is nowhere near the right temperature. Outside the door, Wang Hyuk is standing there with a mop on his shoulder. A hand in a pink glove takes hold of the door and slides it open. Then he sees exactly what is being done on that bathhouse floor. He drops the mop. A man that age will not survive much more. Then he goes into the room, with one hand already out in front of him. The 3 of them are still laughing when he reaches the first one. He takes one of them by the head before anybody has decided anything, and puts a punch through his face in the middle of all that steam. The next one goes down and keeps getting hit on the wet tiles. The other 2 are still laughing, which lasts about 1 more second. Then a punch comes up under a chin, and ends that as well. Both of them are standing there with cigarettes and absolutely no plan, and Wang Hyuk screams at them about the man lying on that floor. Later, 2 faces in a corridor are looking at something they cannot fix, because Wang Hyuk is on the floor now, and he is not moving. Out in the courtyard, two people are standing very close together. Minsu has hold of a guard's uniform with both of his hands. The guard covers his own face and does not answer the question at all. So Minsu shouts it at him again, still holding onto the fabric. Then he goes very still, because a second guard has walked up behind them. Another guard is standing there with a camera already in his hands, and the man in the glasses starts saying something quietly to him. The mouth doing the talking has teeth that were filed into points, and the face around it belongs to a man with a mole, and no limits. Whatever is coming to this facility, it starts with a man like that. Minsu and the guard both look up at the same moment. Neither likes it. The officer with the badge has been watching them from across the yard, two of them close in around Minsu where he is standing. Then a hand starts waving at all of them from down the path, and the two guards stay exactly where they are, boxing him in. Ga Sejun walks up waving, speaking to a prison guard as if they went to school together. The guard with the glasses is not sure how he is supposed to take that. One of the guards is extremely unhappy about the way he just spoke. If I see you doing that again, he starts, and does not finish it. The four of them stand in that yard, sizing each other up. Yusong covers his own face, because he can see where this is going. Sejun jabs a finger into Minsu's chest to make whatever point he is making. Then again, harder, in front of two guards who are standing right there. The leader, he says, as though the word itself is the joke. Then he takes hold of Minsu's collar while the guards watch him do it, and a guard grabs both of them by the neck at the same time. He ends up holding his own throat and saying nothing at all. The guard with the glasses points at him and starts shouting properly. Then he puts a hand on Sejun's shoulder rather than hitting him, and Sejun looks genuinely surprised by that particular decision. Later, a woman is holding a green cushion shaped like a cactus. An old man's legs are resting on it. That is the entire point of it. Then hands are adjusting a bandage across an old man's stomach. She works on him in a hospital bed while the boys stand and watch. The whole group is learning how any of this is actually done. Holding his own forehead, Minsu accepts that he was not built for this work. A hand goes into a bag full of pale folded fabric, and whatever comes out of it makes him start sweating immediately. The group ends up posing in full protective gear with their arms out. One of them is in a mask, staring straight ahead at nothing, and Minsu is standing in the middle of all of it, completely unimpressed. Beside him is Ga Sejun, which is not an accident in any way at all. He lets out a breath and accepts that this is his life for today. One of Cho's boys points a thumb at his own chest about something. Then one of Cho's boys ends up wrapped in tape shouting about Wang Hyuk, because Wang Hyuk is on the floor with a nappy taped over his head. The look on Minsu's face is not something the program planned for. Then Sejun hits him, because that is how the two of them communicate, and points at him afterwards to make sure that it registered. A guard with a camera watches the whole exchange without moving, and Minsu holds it in, which is genuinely new behavior for him. Outside there is a fence, some trees, and a completely clear sky. Three of them are out there smoking where nobody ever checks. Park Tae-ho sits on a bench with a cigarette and no visible concerns. Their real goal is the block where the red uniforms live. Rumor says a candidate is being selected, and one of them is here today. Then one of them walks away from that group without explaining himself, and Sejun stands in profile watching him go. Inside, elderly residents are walking the length of the hospital hallway. Minsu stands against the wall with his arms folded and his mouth shut. Yusong points a finger at him about something he already knows. Then a white sneaker comes down where his foot was going, and one of them trips him in the middle of a hospital corridor. He goes down. The laughing starts before he lands. His expression stops being anything close to patient after that. Then a hand holds out a folded handkerchief to him. The woman in the red apron is giving it to him personally. She wipes his face and tells him he is as stubborn as Yusong is, which is how Minsu learns whose sister has been standing beside him. Please look after my brother for me, she says, and walks off down the hall. Lying on the floor, Minsu works out exactly what he has just been handed. Sejun is sitting on two desks in a classroom, facing away from the door. I know a sentence that makes Ga Sejun lose his mind, his brother once told him, and he is about to use it for something other than a fight. Then the first punch of the afternoon lands in the middle of that room. Sejun looks off to the side while it carries on around him. The next one is an open hand across the face instead of a fist, and Minsu points a finger at him and does not lower it. Their next target is probably the volunteer called Ga Samin, he says. Then he touches his own hair as though that sentence did not happen. Up on a rooftop, the woman in the red apron is standing on her own. She leans on the railing and looks at her phone for a while. Then a cold can of tea lands on the top of her head. The guard holding it does not apologize for being late either. She touches her hair and looks off to the side about it. He leans on the railing beside her and looks out at nothing in particular. Then the two cans knock together on the rail between them, and both of them are smiling about something neither will say out loud. She asked Sejun to watch Minsu, because her brother is dependable. Downstairs, a boy is on the floor outside the restricted door. Up on that roof, neither of them knows any of this yet. She rests her chin on her hand and keeps looking at him. Then a sneaker comes down hard somewhere else entirely, and one of them takes a punch straight to the face. A fist comes forward with nothing held back behind it. Sejun takes one across the face, and his head goes with it. On the rooftop, the two of them are still standing there talking. Downstairs, it has turned into all of them at the same time, and Lee Min-soo ends up back-to-back with Ga Sejun, which is exactly what he wanted when he mentioned her. He has just paid Sejun back for the blow to his head earlier, and he says so. Then he points a finger and makes sure the whole corridor heard it, but Sejun keeps his head down. Nobody expected that. He touches his own head, because that sentence about his sister landed. Then footsteps come across the paving toward the two of them. A whole group arrives, and none of them are here to break anything up. Glancing sideways, Min-soo counts exactly how many of them have arrived, and Sejun does the same on his side without moving his head at all. One of the new arrivals has already picked which of them he wants. Then Min-soo smiles at them. That is never a good sign for anybody. The group laughs back, because there are a great many more of them. One of them decides to go first with his whole face committed to it, and the answer takes him off his feet before he arrives. 3 of them are still laughing about something entirely different. The first one is already on the ground and in a lot of pain. The second gets caught coming in behind him and joins him there. Meanwhile, Sejun watches all of it without changing his expression once. Elsewhere, a pair of hands is lighting a cigarette for a boy on a crate. Guard Jang Gi is kneeling in front of a boy sitting on a stack of boxes. Park Cho smokes and lets a member of staff stay down there a while. He forged the documents that got Cho onto this trip in the first place, and he takes an envelope for it, which he calls pocket money out loud. Then he asks to be put in touch with the people in the special block. The guard's face changes, because that is something the warden handles. If we go near that and it goes wrong, he says, we are both finished. Then one of them bursts in shouting that Ga Se-jun is beating their boys. Cho laughs and tells him not to intervene in it just yet. He wants those two taught a lesson first. He says the name Park Tae-ho. Then they go and watch it. That is the entire reason they are here. And a woman in the doorway watches those 3 walk down the hall. Her apron says Ga Semin, and she folds her arms about what she has just heard. Back outside, Min-soo is shouting with both fists already closed. Sejun takes one of them down, while Min-soo handles whatever is left. A kick goes over Min-soo's head into the one standing behind him, and a punch lands somewhere else in the very same second. 3 of them are shouting, and one of them is bleeding badly. And Sejun screams at the tattooed one with his entire face in it. Min-soo sits on the ground and makes a gesture near his own head. 2 of them get hold of a third and start pulling him down. Then Min-soo hits that pile and the whole thing comes apart again. Then Min-soo kicks one of them clean off his feet. Then Sejun puts a punch through another one standing beside him. Then he stands there with a fist up, waiting for whoever is next, and a boy in a white shirt catches him with one first. 2 fists meet in the air, neither one gives. Then Sejun puts one through him, and that exchange is finished. He hits him again while Min-soo watches from a few steps away. Whatever this has turned into, both of them are enjoying it now. And Min-soo kicks one while another one is already punching him. Then he answers with one of his own straight into the face. And the 2 of them end up back to back in the middle of it. Both of them are swinging at different people at the same time. One of the others bares his teeth with a tattoo running up his neck, and the veins on Sejun's forehead are saying exactly the same thing. Then Min-soo grabs him by the shirt with bodies on the ground around them. Then Sejun puts one through Park Tae-ho, in front of everybody watching, and another one goes down onto the concrete. Then Lee Yoon-suk looks off to the side at something behind them, because there is a much larger shape standing directly behind him. A punch lands somewhere in the middle of all of that. Looking at the ground, Yoon-suk works something out about his own position. Then a white shoe presses down into the face of the tattooed one. He throws one back from underneath it anyway, because he has to. And a third one ends up on his knees on the concrete. A grinning one is standing directly behind the boy with the messy hair. The freckled one is laughing with absolutely everything he has. And somewhere nearby, a blonde in a red jacket is smiling about it. The messy-haired one grins straight ahead at all of it. Then he holds a dark bag up above his own head and puts it over the head of a boy in a gray uniform. A white sneaker goes into that bag while he is still standing up. Then a kick lands on him again once he is down on the ground. The grinning one shakes the bag and looks down at whoever is inside it. Then Sejun puts a punch through that face for doing it. The short-haired one's forehead goes rigid with the effort of it, and he throws one back with everything he can still find. Sejun looks up with blood coming out of his nose and his mouth. Then he takes another one directly across the face. He answers it from where he is standing, and it lands properly. And Park Tae-ho gets hit again and stops trying to explain himself. A fist arrives on another face, and the head goes with it. Blood comes out of his mouth from that same exchange, and another one goes through with all of his weight behind it. Sejun's head goes back with a fresh injury across the nose. Then he looks up, bleeding, at whoever is standing over him. "Teach me," he says. Nobody in that yard expected it. Afterwards, there is a sign on a wall reading solitary confinement, and Yusong is standing over Ga Se-jun where he is sitting on the floor. He pushes his glasses up and starts explaining what training would mean. Sejun looks up at him from the concrete without arguing about any of it. Yusong opens both hands, because what he is offering has conditions, and whatever those conditions are, they take a moment to land. He looks up with a bloody mouth and something like an expression, then he bends all the way over and puts his hands on the floor, and the smile on him now is nothing like the one he arrived wearing. Sejun straightens up out of that bow with his hair hanging over his face. Whatever he agreed to in solitary, he is about to pay for it out here. He looks up with blood still on his mouth and no patience left in him. Then he runs straight at the short-haired one who has been waiting for him, who laughs with a raised fist and blood on his own teeth about it. The first punch comes through with everything behind it. Sejun covers up while the air comes off the impact of it. Then the rest of them arrive, one after another, after another. Keeping his guard exactly where Yusong put it, Sejun watches instead of swinging, and his eyes have not stopped working out the pattern behind the punches. Because blocking alone only slows you down and drops your arms eventually. What you do while blocking is watch, Yusong told him, and nothing else. Sweating, in a guard stance, being corrected on the same thing every night. He gets pushed backward, still holding something dark in one hand. Then another one comes at his face before he is ready for it. Yusong hit him again in a washroom with nobody else watching them, and that time, Sejun turned it aside instead of eating the whole thing. Yusong pushed his glasses up and said nothing at all about the progress. Then Sejun threw one back, and it got blocked immediately. But his eyes had already learned the thing they needed to learn. Back in the yard, the next punch comes between his own arms. The short-haired one breathes out through a mouth full of blood, and puts another one straight down the middle at him. Then he has to guard himself, because something came back at him. A shoe slides on the ground as he gives up a step. He swings again, and Sejun takes it on his arms without moving. Watching those shoulders lift before every heavy punch, Sejun has the pattern. His teeth clench, because none of this is working the way it did before. 3 more come through, and Sejun is still standing there afterwards. He blocks the next one without moving his feet at all. Then he throws one out of that same guard position, and it lands flush on the face in front of him. The head goes back a good deal further than anybody expected. He is shouting through it, while the next one is already arriving. Sejun hits him again before he can get his hands back up. And once more, clean, in front of everybody standing in that yard. Blood comes out of his mouth from that one on its own. Then an arm swings round and takes him across the side of the head. The crowd is close enough to feel the whole thing land. Sejun resets into the stance without anybody having to tell him. And Yusong watches from the edge without saying a single word. Then Sejun puts another one through exactly the same face. The cheek gives way and the sweat comes off it with the punch. And the short-haired one goes down and stays down. Sejun is the only one still standing in that courtyard. Then he reads a name on something, and it stops him. Because if he wants to reach Lim Jisoo, this was only the first step. Somewhere else, Park Cho is on top of a boy, punching downward. And that one has been building since the bus pulled through the gate. Another one lands, and there is nobody stopping any part of it. Then more of them join in on the same person at the same time. The boy under the bag is being held down on the concrete. Cry, Cho tells him. Call for your mother, if you can remember her. Weeks of a rock across his back are what those punches are landing on. Then another one, and it feels like nothing at all to him. Because Cho is laughing. Cho has never hit anybody hard. 2 hands locked together, neither one lets go. Then Minsu tears the bag off his own head and looks up at them, and puts a punch through the first face he is able to reach. Then he stamps on the one already down while Sejun watches it happen. A scream goes up loud enough to bring the whole courtyard running. A guard shouts and points, while another one holds his own head, and Minsu is standing there with a hand over his own face. Then a boot comes down on the side of his head from behind. Afterwards, Sejun is standing in front of a correctional officer. He looks down with blood on him and nothing at all to say. The injuries are new, and the collar around his neck has not changed. Yuzong's face says he understands exactly how bad this looks on paper. Kang Yusong, the guard starts. When you get back to the center, then a pair of sandals comes across the paving toward the whole group. Ga Semin is standing there in a red apron with her arms folded. A group of guards is standing between her and everybody else. She laughs at them and holds up a phone for all of them to see. On the screen there is a video of a guard kneeling to light a cigarette. One of the officers looks at it with a very serious expression. Then that expression changes completely and starts sweating. Because the guard kneeling in that video is standing right here. She holds it higher and reads out the words, bribery, and forged documents. A very large hand comes out toward her and toward that phone. Then Yuseong catches that hand before it gets anywhere near her, and puts the guard attached to it face down on the paving, who ends up on the ground in front of his own colleagues. Yuseong is smiling very slightly, which explains a great deal. And Semin is smiling too, because the two of them plan this together. One guard is on the phone while another one kneels on the ground. What? The guard with the glasses says. It is not really a question, because it is not just him. The men on the red uniform block take more. The screen says Command Division, and Yusong was about to report all of it. Then he covers for him instead, and the guard's face empties out. A hand closes on the collar of that blue uniform and holds it there. Now tell me about the boys in the red uniforms.